call it live?
Instagram. Jordan won on Jordan login on. Oh, can you log in to Instagram on his phone?
Clifton's doing.
I got it.
Instagram Live.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Is that you got that there, Clifton? That's on mine on Facebook though. But we want to go Instagram and Facebook.
Hey, if you guys are watching right now, we're about to go live with the podcast with the Human Garage. The Human Garage. You've been seeing a lot on social media the past couple of days. Now you're going to learn what this is all about. So as we go, just so that those of you watching know, if you leave your comments as we're podcasting, I can address comments and questions that you have. But realize we're going to cover a ton of stuff in today's show. And so it may be that a comment or a question you have early on the show is something we plan on addressing later on. So if you don't see me respond to your question, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I know we're going to cover it anyways later. And we are going to be standing during most of this show. So
with a squat break.
Yeah, that's right. With a squat break. So before we begin, are we doing a shot?
We're doing a shot.
We're doing a shot before we begin.
So let me tell you why we're doing a shot.
And I'll introduce who I am here with here in just a moment. But first, explain to me, Gary, who I will introduce momentarily, why are we taking a shot of Jaeger before we start this podcast?
Well, so our whole body's driven by the fascia, and fascia actually responds very well to a single ounce of alcohol. We get all wound up and tensed up through the day, but this, you take one shot, it relaxes the entire body. Second shot, cortisol starts to fire, and you're in trouble. So we're going to do one
single shot. Now this is Jaeger. Why do you like Jaeger?
Well, it's medicinal. I mean, you can use
medicinal.
You can use any distilled alcohol. And this is what they did in the old country, right?
Yep. I was telling you this before. What I'll probably do when I go home, if I start doing a little shot here and there before I podcast, the podcast could get a little bit crazy, you guys. I'm going to do a little bit of like a nice, my brother married a Polish girl. There's a guy who loves fine Polish vodka. I'm going to do a little bit of vodka with some digestive bitters thrown in.
That's exactly right.
That's going to be my go-to.
Okay, so mine?
We've got a nice Miron glass jar here. So
Miron glass.
Unoxidized Jaeger. Do you want to take the rest of this?
That's yours.
All right, drink it in the middle of the day, baby. So you're saying this relaxes the fascia.
Yeah, and you'll see it kick in about 10 minutes.
And you're all about fascia.
All about fascia.
The other thing, not to make you guys think that this entire show is going to be about drinking strange things, but Gary also had me try this before my Spartan race yesterday. What I'm holding right now are ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate salts, which we've discussed before on the show. But there are two things that you know if you've listened to my other podcasts on ketones. Number one, they're delivered best when combined with medium chain triglycerides, or MCT oil. That's the prevailing thought. And number two is you need a lot of salt added in to the actual beta-hydroxybutyrate to make it more deliverable to the body. Now, why is this different, Gary?
Well, so what we're using here is we're using a combination. It's another patent. There's only 2 patents in the world on ketones. One is from Florida State, and that patent uses 4 times the amount of salts, BHB, and they use MCT oil to activate the ketones. This patent here actually uses butyric acid, which butyric acid is actually a naturally occurring in our system. And what it does is
butyric acid, like that's like butyrate, like people would drink butter, for example, in their morning fat coffee. Also known as BP coffee. I won't say the whole word, so we don't get any cease and desist orders on the podcast. But anyway, so normally you would have butyric acid in your gut.
Right.
Now, why are you blending it with the ketones?
So the butyric acid is the activator for the salts. And so we use our own body's apenose fat to activate the salts rather than putting a third party or another MCT oil into there. Because if you're an athlete, MCT oil is great, but if you're using it for health purposes, and there's a lot of reasons we can talk about later why you might want to, you don't want to have an extra 1,000, 1,500 calories of oil.
Well, that's the thing is you dump all the oil in your coffee in the morning, or you consume these ketone supplements that have added oils. You look at the label, it's 60, 70, 80 calories, which adds up over the day if you're drinking a lot of these MCT oils or the MCT powders. So you basically figured out a way to increase the availability of the ketones by combining them with butyric acid.
Right, and the patent actually, just so I properly recognize it, is Franco Cavallari. He's a PhD from Canada. He was actually Mr. North America.
I was going to say, he's a bodybuilder, right?
He was, actually.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is I competed on the same stage as him in 1998.
Oh, we're going to get into your story here in just a second. Yeah, you got a crazy story.
So what happened was that he had ulcerative colitis, and he started this quest to find out how to fix it. And there's a couple of products we're going to talk about later, but this was a secondary. And he found that butyric acid, and this is there's only 2 patents. This is the second one. He found that butyric acid would actually activate the apenose fat, so we could activate the ketones. And what's really cool about it is BA is really what you want. The ketones give you a kick, but the butyric acid, the cool part about that is that it creates nutritional ketosis. Nutritional ketosis is really what you want.
Causing the liver to churn out more ketones. And the same way that MCT oil causes the liver to churn out more ketones, butyric acid is achieving the same thing.
Exactly, but using your own body fat to do it. So for things like weight loss and stuff like that, it works a lot better. Appetite control, sugar regulation.
I love it.
So
it tastes good. It's black cherry flavor. It's beta hydroxybutyrate salt, green tea leaf extract, and then butyric acid.
That's right.
Amazing.
And Franco, who developed
this
it.
was like rocket fuel in my race yesterday, by the way.
Oh.
Because usually like breakfast before the race, I did nothing. I just ate a bunch of these ketones.
Yeah, I know.
Double dosed on them, which is actually what I'm drinking during our podcast as well. I want to talk in a little bit later on in the show about Franco and how he beat his ulcerative colitis.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have digestive issues or digestive inflammation, including myself, which we'll talk about. There are some other things that he took, but we'll get to those in a second because I want you guys to know who I'm actually with right now. So, Gary, you pronounce your last name Linehan?
Linehan, yeah.
Linehan. I met you 2 months ago when I was at Paleo FX. I was chatting with a guy, Adam von
Rothfelder.
It's von Rothfelder, right?
Yeah, he's one of the guys.
Hello, Adam. I know you're probably
Adam.
listening in. Adam, he won the NBC TV show Strong.
He did,
I believe.
2008.
Excellent personal trainer, wealth of knowledge. I'll put a link to Adam's stuff in the show notes. But Adam said, Ben, you got to go see these guys at the Human Garage. They will absolutely blow your mind. Now, people fly up to my house and do fascia work on me. I had people, send me to all these places all over the globe to do all these crazy things from, Thai massage to neurofeedback to every form of bodywork therapy that exists. And I have never experienced in my life what you guys are doing here at the Human Garage. And so I had to get you on the show. But I find your story fascinating. I think it's a great place for us to start to kind of fill people in on how this all came to be, why we're standing in Venice Beach right now at this place called the Human Garage. So tell me how this all started.
Well, if we go back a bunch of years ago, I was a bodybuilder in Canada, went to the Nationals, so qualified pro. And at the time, I thought that was going to be my career. I fell under a squat back in late 80s, 600-pound squat. I'd actually been on the squat like this, and as I went down, I dropped and torqued. And I spent, I obviously injured. I was in bed for a couple weeks, and then I spent the next 20 years trying to fix that injury, because that injury threw my body into a cycle of injuries, and it was injury after injury after injury. And I was training and exercising and still relatively healthy, but as I moved into my 30s, it started to catch up. By the time I was 32, my back was going out 2 or 3 times a year, and by the time I was 35, 36, I was like crying in pain, literally. And I remember a very specific time. I was on the living room floor doing cat cows, trying to relieve my back, and crying to the point, like, in so much pain that I just thought, I don't even want to be here anymore. And it got to a point where, when I was 40, I had my back 10 times that year. I was 22 weeks basically in bed. Every time I got up, I was back down.
Gosh.
And I'd spent 20 years going to therapy 2, 3, 4 times a week just to maintain my life. And I went all over the globe looking for therapy. It's kind of like what you're doing. You test and try everything, but I was doing it to try and heal myself.
Right.
And everything
you were doing it out of sheer curiosity. You were doing it because you were slowly losing the desire to live. You were in so much pain.
It was actually the desire to live.
And it's funny what you say, by the way, about an injury leading to a cascade of injuries. And we talked about that a little bit as you were working on me the past couple of days. This is something that a lot of people deal with, right? Like they hurt their big toe, that leads to a knee injury, it leads to a hip issue, leads to the back, and we talked about how it leads to the gut and neural issue. I mean,
it's like this vicious cycle that so many people experience.
That's right.
So you had this going on. You start traveling around the globe.
And combined with a couple head injuries, most people have had head injuries, and they don't actually really know that they've had them. That's the funny part. I remember now going back. I was 6 years old. The first time we were playing out front, and I got hit in the side of the head here with a baseball bat, and it knocked me out. And that was the start of the neurological stuff. And so 8 concussions later, bodybuilding injury. And where it really hit me was May 10th, 2010. I was sitting in front of a computer. I opened up a web browser, and I couldn't remember how to use the web browser. And it scared the living daylights out of me. And I crawled up in a ball, cried, and that moment changed my life. That was where everything started to happen. And I decided at that point I needed to fix myself, and I went out and actively worked at trying to find a solution, because I had been playing around like everybody else had been, trying to fix injuries and fix the things that were were bothering me, but it just wasn't working, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And I've been to 300 chiropractors over my time, physical therapists all over the country, everything, a gospel.
You were like a stereotypical health seeker trying out all these different fixes.
That's right. And when we're hurt, we seek.
Mm-hmm.
And
we do. Have you ever read David Hawkins' book, Dr. David Hawkins' book, Healing?
Right.
I think it's Healing and Recovery.
Yeah.
He also has another one called Surrender.
Yeah.
The Pathway to Healing. Both great books. And he, in one of those books, I forget which book it is, but I actually have a blog post. I'll post it in the show notes for you guys, which are going to be at bengreenfieldfitness.com/human garage, just like it sounds, bengreenfieldfitness.com/human garage. There's a chapter in that Hawkins book, and I'll put it in the show notes for you guys, where he goes into, it's like 2 full pages of all the things people try when their bodies are broken or their digestive system is broken, and just like you, they turn into these almost like a hypochondriac health seeker, trying to figure out what's going on and trying every supplement on the face of the planet and every method on the face of the planet. And it sounds like you kind of started down that road.
Yeah, and we all do. And it's really because of, and we come back to the way that we do our therapy and the alignment protocol, is that when you're actually in pain, your brain is always seeking solutions. The job of the brain is to evaluate the internal and external environments and adapt us to those environments. And one of the biggest problems that we have is we start to blame everything else. But this is all, at the end of it, it's all controlled by the brain. It's all neurology. And then again, we have to take a step back, because there's a lot of belief in the world that the brain is in charge of the body. But it clinically is not. I mean, if you take a look at it, and there's where one of the differences is. There's a big gap between science and medicine. And this is where the problem is, because we spend a lot of our time in medicine without reviewing the science. And what I really appreciate about what you're doing and other biohackers out there is they're looking for the science, and they're not waiting for the medicine to catch up, because medicine wants the peer review, they want 10 years of studies, but sometimes we just need to get stuff done. Right. So there's 15,000 peer-reviewed articles out there, and even like the HeartMath Institute is scientifically proving that brain is not in charge. And we can argue about what is in charge, and we have our beliefs and other people have their beliefs, but we just can say that if we start off with the brain is not in charge, that lets us make a series of other decisions about the body and how we're going to handle things. The brain is, if you think of your body as a computer, and your brain is a CPU, rather than the brain being the computer. And if that's the case, then the CPU is opening and running programs all day long.
So you're saying that the fascia is the brain.
Well, that's where, that's exactly what's starting to come up.
All right, now I'm going to back it up here, because you were traveling all around looking for these solutions, and I know we're going to get this question, so I'm going to ask you the difficult question, the devil's advocate question.
Sure.
Why the hell should we trust a guy like you? Was it all the studying that you did? Was it your background? Like, what was it that kind of led? I know it's a tough question. Like, what?
No, that's a fair question.
That kind of fueled this? Like, how did you learn all of this?
It's a fair question. I'm just like you. I'm just somebody who wants to learn. I was trained in nutrition. I was a bodybuilder. I was an athlete. I spent my life.
Bodybuilding, by the way, one of the most bro science geeked out. Having been a bodybuilder,
right.
I used to spend hours reading textbooks.
Yeah.
That people were paying universities lots of tuition dollars to actually learn this stuff. And I was just burying myself in textbooks when I was a bodybuilder. And
sure.
being homeschooled K through 12, I have nothing against the process of self-learning, But it sounds like you as a bodybuilder were at some point became infatuated with the human body and went down that deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think that in life there are things that are going to happen to you, and those things you can either transmute them into a learning, or you can actually blame life and blame everything else. I just decided to transmute that event into a learning environment for myself, and I went from place to place and from person to person, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to somebody who taught me a lot about neurology and how the body works, because the one therapy that started to get me out of pain was a neuromuscular therapy by my old partner, Dr. David Rubenstein. And this guy was literally a genius. He had figured out a way to use motion. And he was working on Olympic athletes, and he figured out a way to use motion to actually stimulate cerebellum function to correct the mechanical aspects of the body. And in this particular time, we were so interested in doing this. His therapy was the first one that got me functional. And so I went
So
from
he was the first guy you came across as you're traveling the globe,
Right.
who actually was able to fix some of the things going on with you.
Correct. And what do you do?
Dr. David Rubenstein.
Yeah, and what do you do when that happens? Well, I did what anybody would do. I looked at him and said, he's older than me. He's one guy. Most likely, and no offense, he's probably going to pass away before I do. So I need this therapy for the rest of my life, so we need to duplicate this. And so what we did is we went on a mission to duplicate it. We opened up 2 clinics, the Rubenstein Centers in Orange County and in Beverly Hills. Then that was the start. It was the start of the process, and he had a couple peer-reviewed papers, international peer-reviewed papers that talked about the brain and how the neurokinetic sequences in the brain and how it was impacted. And what I spent was the next 4 years of my life building the Rubenstein Centers and defending his science. So that was a PhD level education. He's a PhD in medical science, kinesiology, and pain management. So that's really where I started to put things together. But that therapy got me out of pain, or made me functional. But every 2 or 3 or 4 days, I needed to do something again in order to just keep myself balanced. And that wasn't good enough for me. For me, a life is not a life if you have to continually go back and do something to.
Right. If you have to go to like a chiropractor
twice a week
for 12 weeks or whatever it is. So
that's not life. And
right.
I got to a point. I remember wanting to leave and go on a little bit of a trip, and I felt myself getting anxious and nervous because I'm away from my therapy.
Right.
Panicking because I'm leaving and I'm going to go into pain.
Yeah.
And so
crazy that same thing happens to me, right? Like I have all my body work tools at home and my vibrating foam, and then I'll pack up and I'll go hit the road to race and speak and travel for a couple of weeks. And I'm like, what's going to happen to my body? And when I come back home, you have to go double time and fix everything that went wrong while I was traveling.
And that's what we all do. And
right.
so that led me on a quest. And what we started doing at that point was we started looking for a reason why this therapy, which is now called the Rubenstein method, why it didn't keep me out of pain. Right. And it was because of structural imbalances, actually still controlled by the brain, and the structural imbalances basically were robbing my body. I would get up and walk and would be perfect, but because of structural imbalances, my body would degrade, and over a couple of days, I'd be back to where I was. Not exactly, but not feeling the way I needed to feel. So we started taking, we went every day after our work, and we went to my garage, and that's Human Garage. And we started practicing, and we had a discovery about the body.
We being you and Dr. Rubenstein?
No, me and at that time as a partner, his name Joseph Gonzalez. And what happened was and I'll give credit to him for this, we actually were working on trying to figure out a way for me to understand why my body couldn't take the therapy and walk away and come back in 3 or 4 months and feel good.
Right.
And so we found a couple things about how the body interacted, and it contradicted what is typically thought about in normal medicine or sports medicine or science. And that led to a whole series of discoveries. And for 18 months, we spent 5 to 7 hours a day in the garage trying to figure things out. We developed a protocol after 18 months after a series of discoveries, and at one point we had it's funny because our first employee is Sarah Urich, and her boyfriend and her walked at the time. They walked by the garage and they asked what we're doing, and he said, "This looks like it could help me. He had back surgery." And so we took him as our first client. And then he told a few people who told a few people, and within 6 months 300 people a month were coming to this garage. And then we moved it into a 900 square foot apartment, and I swear this could only happen in Venice. Because no place else in the world would you get business people, mainstream celebrities coming to a 900 square foot apartment in Venice for therapy. And so we didn't have any marketing, no letterhead, didn't have a name, no phone number. All we had at that time was the therapy and a place to do it. And we just started working on people. And we were there for 18 months, and we would go from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. The great part about that is my commute was 3.5 seconds.
Wow. Amazing.
My bedroom
Exactly.
to the treatment room.
Just get out of your underwear and put some clothes on.
Oh, we had a couple of times where the alarm didn't go off, and at 5:55 in the morning, somebody's knocking at the door, and
Right.
it's like, whoa!
They're in the bathroom to do therapy. Now, when I walked in here for the first time, it's like this room with like you feel like you walked into a club, right? This pounding, not stressful, but like laid back, like deep house music, and people in all these different beds, and there's grunts and groans. And some people are not to make the Human Garage sound bad, but they're like crying and having emotional releases.
Yeah.
And you've got all these bodywork tools and 4 practitioners working on one person. These things I've never seen before.
Correct.
So what I'd like to delve into is what this system that you've developed actually is, and why you've put all these little pieces. Like over here on our left, and if you're watching this on Facebook Live or on the video, which you can also access if you go to bengreenfieldfitness.com/human garage, you've got your whole alignment protocol, or your mind, body, repair, and alignment protocol, and you have phase 1 being biomechanical, unwind and balance. Then you move on to biochemical, stabilization, maintenance, and development. Walk me through what this system actually is and how it works.
So,
and as you do so, by the way, I'd love for you to weave in some of the things that you told me about how this not only fixed your back, but also somehow fixed your digestive system and these like bloating and gas and ileocecal valve issues that you were having, because I found that part of what you talked about fascinating as far as your own personal story. What you
For
found
sure.
there.
So it starts off, and maybe the best way is actually to show you a graphic of exactly what we do. I don't know, what's the best way for people to see this? Is it going up like this?
So basically, if you're on Facebook Live right now, I'll hold this up for you. Otherwise, you'll see this in the video if you visit the show notes, and I will also embed this in the show notes. So go ahead, Gary.
So basically, what is the goal? The goal is pain-free motion. And in the situation of pain-free motion, what we're looking for is we're looking for our body to just move and feel free. And so what we start off with is an unwinding process, which is, it looks like and it feels like at first like some sort of trigger point therapy. And but what it is it's what's different between body work and alignment work. Is body work is me aggressively telling your body what I want it to do. Alignment work is me creating a series of logical problems that your body can solve. Like for example, your body is the one that controls, and your brain controls all of the function of your muscles. So there's trillions of calculations that make this happen. Your body knows better, and your brain knows better how to fix this than I do. It just needs a little stimulation in the right way. And that leads to, we'll go back into this, but what that leads to another conversation is why this happened in the first place, is where we're going to get into some of the gut issues. So what we start off with is we walk people through, and as they come in, we take pictures and we do analysis. And the cool part about it is we want people to understand everything about their body. The time that people leave here, if they even care a little bit, they know more than their physical therapists and their chiropractors and their trainers how their body works for them. That's what we want to do. We want to re-educate them with their body.
Right.
So we start off with this unwinding process, and you've seen it. I mean, you're posting some of your own pictures, and we're going to do some more of your realignment. And that first session, you were here.
Well, the very first time I was here 2 months ago, I showed my wife, and she was shocked. I came home, and she could see my... So you had rubber gloves on, and you were inside my mouth.
Right.
Tears in my eyes. I'm
Tears
crying.
in
My children are standing there. Like, Dad, are you okay? And you got your fingers inside my jaw. Just adjusting a whole bunch of things in my jaw to actually affect, at that point, some pain I was having in my back. You fixed my back by going in through my jaw, but then we did a before and after photo.
And you were
Because you do before and after photos on everything. When I came in, you did this full graph analysis with your iPad, and my entire facial structure was changed.
That's right.
Like a more square jaw and more aligned eyes. It was crazy.
Yeah, so alignment is not just the body.
I became a supermodel. I didn't tell you that.
You were doing the catwalk here earlier.
Yeah, the catwalk.
Yeah, so Ben was, just so you guys missed this, he was doing the catwalk and he had the whole turn. It was so funny.
Well, every time that Gary aligns you, or one of his team members here aligns you, they have you walk so that this pattern becomes cemented in your brain. And I turned it into a catwalk. But it's very interesting how every time you adjust someone, you work on something, we get up, we walk, get back on the table, you're watching, you're observing, and we get back on the table, and that's part of this process. But
So
we digress. Go ahead.
No, but that's okay, because the walking is what integrates things. But what we, first of all, is we look at key points. So, I mean, there are, we have, a lot of people have hip issues, like they have shoulder issues, neck issues, and we're just generally tight. We're compressing, and the average person comes in here, it's funny, because we ask them what their height is, and then we measure it. 90% of the time, they are 1.5 inches shorter than what they thought they were. And why is that? Because over time, compression starts.
This is true. The last time I was measured, I was told I was 6'2.5". I came in, you measured me, I was 6'1".
Yeah, but after the treatment, the very first treatment, just a consultation, you had got a 1/2 inch in that 45 minutes that we were working together.
Right.
And so what it is, it's about structural alignment and posture. And
It's like a penis pump for your whole body.
yeah, exactly.
You can add that as your slogan.
Yeah, too much information. Now, so the idea is that what we want in every situation is we want people's alignment to be back in place. But what constitutes alignment, and why is that important? So we're biomechanical beings. We're taught that, for example, one of the things that we looked at as part of the development of the therapy was really simply that there were things that were missing in the discussion about how mechanics work and how alignment work. One of the things, the biggest one that was missing was we've never accounted properly for gravity or atmospheric pressure when we talk about functional, structural, working muscle function in the body. Like, for example, that your quad's antagonist is your hamstring, right?
Right.
That's true, but when I stand up, that changes. And why does that change? Because gravity changes the effect of that. So what happens is, really, my calves, my quads, my glutes, my pecs, and my traps are my forward, backward stabilizers. And they get information. The way my brain knows which muscles to fire to keep me stabilized is the ratio between my scapula and my knee, or my patella. Those two things change the firing. So again, we show everybody.
Okay.
So what happens here is we're just going to stand here. I'm going to roll your shoulders back.
Okay.
And watch where your gravity goes on your feet. You go back into your heels.
Right, into my heels.
Right. So what happens is, because the scapula's relationship to the patella changes, what happens is your brain starts firing a new sequence of muscles to adapt to it. And remember, the job of the brain is to evaluate the internal and external environment and adapt us to those environments. And the other one is, there's 5 floating bones in the body. The other one's the hyoid, which is left to right.
Floating bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your hyoid tells you which way to go, left and right. And
Interesting.
And those things are really important. So structural alignment is for posture and movement, but it also has a lot of other things. Now, we've never considered gravity, and we've never considered atmospheric pressure. Right now, there's 2,000 pounds of pressure pushing on you. All right? Sea level, scientific fact. So that means we have 2,000 pounds of pressure pushing out. Fair statement, right?
Right.
Because if we didn't, we would implode or explode if there was more. And what happens is, the body has pressure, and we move pressure through the body, and we think of the body as biomechanical, but I'm going to tell you, it's not the way that we think it is. The body is the movement of pressure. We have approximately 690 muscles, and we can't agree on that. Nobody can agree. So
right.
640.
You just found a new one, right? Like in the thigh somewhere, like they just discovered a new muscle.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just say this, that every single muscle has to balance against every single muscle. There's 350 muscles approximately from the neck up, and 340 from the neck down. And all those muscles are constantly talking to each other in conjunction with the brain to keep us balanced. And so if I was to remove the pressure, now we talk about blood pressure, right? And what it does. And we want pressure in your heart, but nobody's talking about pressure in your organs.
Right.
Nobody is. So if you put pressure on your muscle, so let's do a bicep curl. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go on.
Okay.
Come on.
Curl against resistance.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to restrict the muscle. Go ahead.
Okay.
Do it again.
Yeah.
You have no force.
So you just use your hand. You're putting
Squeeze.
pressure on my biceps for those of you listening,
And
I can't produce any force.
Right. So
you're squeezing the bicep.
that works for everything in the body. Okay. That also works for all the organs in the body as well. And we get a lot of buildup and pressure here. And we just had a discovery over the last 3 weeks that has changed everything we knew about the business of the body.
Okay, tell me what that discovery is.
It was about
Don't leave us hanging.
it was about how pressure
Do you want
affects.
any ketones, by the way?
I don't want ketones.
All right,
Yeah.
take a sip.
Take a sip.
Black cherry ketones, baby. Amazing. Rocket
Yeah,
fuel for your brain.
yeah. Of course, BA keto
This
fuel.
podcast brought to you by
BA keto fuel.
Okay, so this discovery that you just made in the past 3 weeks.
So we've always known that pressure affects. So we think about a pump in the body. We exercise, we get a pump in the muscle. Blood pressure in the muscle. That's exactly what a pump is. But we're not thinking about how the pressure builds up in here. We were designed to do two things as human beings that we don't do anymore. We were designed to squat and walk. In LA, we don't walk very much.
Mm-hmm.
I know you do, but in LA we don't.
Fun.
And
it's my favorite thing to do when I visit the cities. I just get most of my workouts. I'm just walking.
Right.
My appointments.
And so we were designed to walk 10 to 12 miles a day,
Right.
and we just don't do it anymore. And as a result, like if you go to New York, they have 40% less back pain, neck pain, knee surgeries, foot surgeries.
Right.
They walk 3.5 miles a
Lower
day.
postprandial blood glucose in places like Japan. Again,
Absolutely.
You have that concept of stopping eating when you're 80% full and then walking.
Yes.
I think it's even just like 15 minutes based on the research from a couple of years ago.
It doesn't
to
take
lower
much.
postprandial glucose. No.
Yeah, so the other part too is we're designed to squat. We're talking about
Right.
squatting.
You squat 4 to 6 hours a day.
Well, about 4.
So as you're walking, and we're going to disappear from the video, probably back behind the table. But basically, you squat in this position that we're in now, like a hunter-gatherer roasting s'mores over the fire,
Right.
squat position, and you just do this all day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I squat when I'm working with you, I'm squatting.
Right.
And so I'm always squatting throughout the day. And when I do, because of we did a podcast with Mike and
The
Doug,
barbell shrug guys, yeah.
And because of that, we have clients coming from all over the world: Japan, UK. We got people.
I mean, the same thing's going to happen after this podcast because I guarantee you that. But for those of you listening in right now, you have to go to the if you have a body, you just have to come. I mean, that's. And anyway, I don't want to make this sound like an infomercial. Go ahead with the squat and the pressure. Relate to me why the squatting and the walking.
Well, let's talk about what squatting does.
And then the
Okay,
discovery.
so squatting actually puts a lodiatic curve back in the spine, puts a cervical curve in the spine. It actually opens up, it perfectly stretches your hips.
Mhm.
Our hips are our center of motion.
Feels really good.
It does, doesn't it? So our hips are our center of motion.
Hopefully I don't take a dump right here. It's the only problem. It's also the dump in the woods post.
That's exactly it. But what happens is when we squat, we perfectly balance stretch the hips. And that's the perfect stretch for the hips. And squatty bodies are become really popular now. We use one, for sure. But when we squatting, what it does is it actually, a couple of things happen. It forces diaphragmatic breathing. You cannot breathe with your chest and shoulders when you're squatting. And 60% of our lymph nodes are right underneath the diaphragm. So and 99% of the population does not diaphragmatically breathe without intention. So you should be diaphragmatically breathing all day long.
So it's all chest tension with tight abs, abdominal tension, pressure on the digestive organs.
Correct.
When you're not walking, when you're not squatting, and when you're holding this pressure in. This
Absolutely, yeah. And so when the other thing that happens when we squat is we relax our shoulders, we relax our neck, it relaxes our jaw. The process of squatting actually is, and one thing we discovered just recently is the other part about squatting is when you squat, you feel a little bit of pressure around here initially.
Sure. Yeah.
And so what it is
around here being like your chest and your lats area.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you a picture of a diaphragm. And when we can put this in the show notes, can I grab a picture of the diaphragm, guys? So we use apps to explain everything that we need.
Right, you have these amazing anatomy apps you've been walking me through on your iPad, where as you're working on me, you can pull up any section of the human body.
A regular diaphragm.
It's like a pop-up book for the body.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is maybe you want to show this.
Let's go ahead and stand. Since this is horrible for Facebook Live, so we just disappear back behind the table when we squat, even though it feels really good. Okay, so go ahead.
Phone drop down over there?
Oh yeah, we can fix that too.
Yeah.
This must have just happened.
So,
okay, so go ahead. Keep talking as I fix the phone here.
So what we're going to do is we're going to show you the diaphragm, and I'm going to show you exactly what happens with the diaphragm, and how it works. So the diaphragm is our primary sense of breathing, and yes, that's it. And so what happens here when we look at the diaphragm? Is in here. You see these attachments right here.
Right.
This is where the esophagus and comes down, and then also you got the arteries come down there. But the diaphragm is a big suction cup, right?
Yeah.
And it has what dawned on me was there's something else about the diaphragm that
Holding all the organs in.
Yes.
Because I hunt, and when I field dress a deer or an animal out in the field, you have to cut through all the little sections of the diaphragm to get the organs to release. You can literally, as gross as this may be, especially for you vegans listening in, so you can dump all the organs out of the body.
Sure.
And I'll harvest the kidney and the liver and the heart and take those home and eat them. But a lot of the stuff you're just dumping out and getting rid of, but none of it comes out unless you relieve the pressure from the diaphragm.
So up in there, when we added connective tissue, and I never looked at it this way, there's a little valve around every entrance in the diaphragm, and it's like a pressure valve at the very top of it.
Interesting.
So when you squat, what happens is as you come down, it starts to push the pressure, the pelvic floor starts to push the pressure up.
Right.
Now I'm going to tell you how I figured this out, and it was really wow. It was my wife who helped me figure this one. This is a crazy experience because we were talking about how pressure affects all the organs, and we know that in science we know that that different organs have association with different emotions. Like your liver has an anger, deals with anger. Your kidneys are with sadness, and your adrenals are with fear. So if you think about the order of the organs, it's really the liver is the first line of defense, and then you got the kidneys right above that, and on top of that you got the adrenals. And so she was laying on coming up to her cycle. She was laying down on the table, and she says, honey, I'm sad. And I'm like, I just had the intuition to go over and relieve, because we've been doing this for mechanical reasons for a long time. And I just pushed in like this gently, and I just waited.
Just against her diaphragm.
About 5 minutes, really about the tummy. And I waited for it took about 7 minutes, and I just let the air flow its way up to the body. Now, we've been doing this for a long time without understanding what we were doing. And what happened is she got up and she went, that's weird. I'm not sad anymore. And that's where everything changed. I realized that we talk about pressure on the heart. You want pressure on the heart. But what about pressure on your liver? Yeah. So if you actually remove the pressure from the liver and the GI tract, all the food moving through there, and one of the biggest problems we have is gastrointestinal problems. And you think about this right now.
Gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. You were dealing with a lot of these things as you were going through this same back pain fascial issue.
But I didn't associate the two at the time. So think about this. The 3 biggest issues in America: back pain, neck pain, bloating. Okay. And we found 2 sources of bloating. One of them are distension, let's call it. Because we don't know if it's really bloating sometimes. So from the belly button down, often it's mechanical torquing of the hips. And my hips used to anteriorly rotate, which most people do. And so I would stand up, and the adductor minimus was pulling that sucker back. And as I would stand up, I would go like this, and it would distend my lower belly. I remember standing in the shower. I hadn't eaten anything all day long. And my lower belly's distended every day of my life until 6 months ago.
So you had bloating, even though you hadn't eaten. That was all related
let's
to
call it distension.
Distension.
Yeah, because bloating is different. Gotcha. And so I didn't know the difference. So distension in my lower belly, I used to look at that, and I'd be, what is this? And I'd, in the shower, push my belly in, and I could feel my back release. That was weird. Yeah. But I just didn't quite get it at the time. It wasn't making sense. So we figured out 6 months ago that if we simply reduce the adductor minimus, which is right here, and I'm going to get a graphic of that to show you. If once we relieve the pain from that, you'll see that actually starts to rotate the hips back, and the distension stopped in the lower belly for the first time in my life.
Was that one of the things you worked on today on me, was my adductor minimus?
That's exactly. Well, yeah, last night.
Last night.
Yeah, last night we did that.
It's one big blur.
And what you felt is you felt pain in your toe and in your bladder area.
In my bladder area.
So women in the uterus.
And the crazy thing is, and we'll get into this if we have time for this podcast, I didn't just feel it. The 4 other people working on me felt it in their stomachs. That's a whole other different rabbit hole to get into there. But yeah, keep going with this pressure idea.
What you're talking about is tuning in. We'll talk about that. That's our special sauce. That's how we know how to help people. Yeah. And that's the first thing we teach.
Yeah, you've married a lot of like Eastern Qi and medicine concepts into this whole practice, which I think is really cool. But go ahead with the adductor minimus.
So this is the adductor minimus, and this will be in show notes. It's a little hard to show on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll show it in the show notes.
So what happens is in the adductor minimus, you see how it goes from the front of the hip there, right up there, and then it goes right, it attaches right underneath.
Front of the hip into the femur.
Right underneath the glute attachment. If I take it out and show you where it is, that's where it is. If I add glutes to it, add the muscles to it.
By the way, what is this software program you use?
It's Essential Anatomy. Anatomy. We use all of these programs to show our clients exactly what's going on because we want them to understand.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the adductor minimus, and I'm going to isolate it again. And do we got this on camera? Yeah? Okay, good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate this. And when I isolate this, Ben, look at this. This is the crazy part. Okay. This is the best part of it all. I'm going to show you the posterior view. So I'm going to wrap it around here. And I'm going to take a pen out here and I'll show you. So when this guy tightens up here, what it does is it causes the hip to have that kind of action.
So the adductor minimus tightens up and rotates that hip forward.
And it's this action here.
Right.
So you look at a lot of women, for
Which I have a
example.
ton of. You can see that when I run.
Right,
You can see photos of me in the
right.
race.
That's what I
run
was
and the hip
watching.
Comes up, yeah.
I was watching your race, and that's how I knew
Right.
what to do. So what happens is that when the adductor
And
minimus
not
gets
just
tight-
me, by the way. I see this in like hundreds of athletes who I see at these races. They all kind
Absolutely.
of run with that hip up a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit of a trot in the gait, like the foot turns out.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what happens is that when it tightens up, it forces this anterior tilt of the hip, and you need to see the knees come in. Look at a lot of women; they have their knees come in at center. If you
Yeah.
watch. And the reason why that is, I mean, we wear heels. Women wear heels, so it puts it up. That's that motion of the heel. But the other thing is, when we sit in chairs, it gets tight. And as we stand up, it causes an anterior tilt, or anterior tilt of the pelvis. And what our body naturally does to stand up is we force it out like this, and that's where all the pressure happens. And so my lower gut distension was nothing to do with food, and I went on every elimination diet. I went
Which a lot of people do that, you know,
For
freaking
20
like
years.
supplements and
Yeah,
diets.
that-
And what you're saying is that in many cases,
It's
gut
mechanical.
issues are mechanical.
Well, then distension issues are mechanical. And then when we get bloating distension from the belly button up, typically it's a backup from the small intestines. So what happens is
Like small intestine bacterial overgrowth. SIBO.
yeah, SIBO or anything like that. So what happens is we started figuring out this whole body here, this whole cavity, is really a big pressure vessel. And the pressure needs to be relieved, and since we don't squat, we don't relieve it anymore. We don't have a natural mechanism for relief. And what we did on you yesterday is we went in there, and it took us 30 minutes to actually move all of the gas and all of the issues out of your small intestines.
You were basically doing deep work on my adductor minimus and my ileocecal valve, kind of like that right side of the belly button.
And
the right belly button.
pushing all
Right.
of the bacteria, because
Right.
we think of the organs as standing there, but it's a valve that's inside of a sausage case. So as the sausage case turns, the valve is susceptible to get stuck open and closed. If it gets stuck closed, we feel distension from the belly button up, and that distension comes with a little bit of heightened breath, like a little bit of anxiety at the top of the breath, or hard breathing. And that's how I knew it was happening. And then in addition to that, what it does is it starts to internally rotate the femur and externally rotate the left one, and then the hip fit on the left one goes internal, and on the right one goes external. And that rotation causes my shoulders to rotate in. And the pressure is from this shoulder into this hip. So we started realizing there's all this pressure down on this part of the body. And as you saw yesterday, we actually unlocked your hip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience.
Now,
wasn't
now
it?
the weird thing is, so you start with this biomechanical adjustment analysis work, you know, deep tissue therapy, walking it off, all these different things. But what I found was very interesting, and I want to perhaps just delve into this before we turn to some of the biochemical things you do and some of the other things you work into the practice, is first of all, feel a little rapid fire questions here. It wasn't just you working on me.
No,
There were 4 people working on me.
yeah.
Why?
Well, so we
Those seem very sustainable from a business standpoint, by the way.
we've actually found a way to make it sustainable. So
Okay.
basically, there's always one motion mechanic. We call ourselves motion mechanics because
Okay.
we evaluate and repair motion.
Okay.
And so we always have one motion mechanic, and we always have one assistant. But for different parts of the treatment, the assistants will all converge in to help one person. And then they'll move to another person.
Right.
So there's certain points in time, and what you notice is that we're working on your quad here,
Right.
and you had Jordan take and go like this on your jaw, and
Right,
your
he's
quad
like,
release.
yeah, there's like people stroking different parts of my body.
Right.
Not in the way you would find at a Thai massage parlor. For
No,
those
just
whose
a light,
minds went there.
very light
But
touch,
basically,
or
yeah, like one
that.
person's going clockwise on my stomach, the other person's stroking my jaw, another person's stroking my arm, and then you've got one person, you called it your motion mechanic?
No, I am the motion mechanic.
You are the and
Yeah,
then you've got
motion.
one person doing the actual
So-
deep tissue, like the
so-
teeth gritting.
So the
deep tissue
motion mechanic is the one that's actually delivering the
Right.
therapy and the alignment protocol, and then the assistants are there to move the fascia around in different parts. But sometimes we're working on your quad and we're touching up in your shoulder. As soon as we go like that, the quad releases.
Right.
And so what
as soon as
that
you
is-
stroke the fascia across the shoulder, the quad releases. Why?
Well, because it's really about fascia, and the fascia is organizing itself. Think about fascia; it's about the same chemical composition as a quartz crystal. It can crystallize. It has it has the same strength as tensile steel.
What do you mean it can crystallize?
Well, what fascia, it actually crystallizes in lines of force. You'll feel it. Fascia is what supports our structure. Our muscles don't. Fascia is the one that actually creates the structure. So if you have an injury in your hip, what will happen is the fascia will tighten up between the rib and the hip to give you leverage, like shorten the muscle so that you can walk easier.
Right.
And the fascia is always moving and changing. As a matter of fact, if I lean over like this and you're sensitive enough, what I'll start to feel is I start to feel the rotational flow in the fascia torquing this way to help give me leverage so I don't fall over. It's amazing how the body works.
Now the fascia also, you told me this, and this relates to the body being the brain versus the brain being the brain.
Okay.
You said the fascia has 100
trillion
trillion
cells
versus the brain, you said it has like 100 billion.
That's
Why
right.
is that important in terms of cellular communication or body
Well, let's
communication?
just talk about organic density. The
Okay.
body, the more organically dense something is, the more valuable it is to the equal structure of the body. So the brain and the gut have 100 billion cells. Intrinsic, extrinsic nervous
So
system.
basically your enteric nervous system, 100 billion cells.
Right, and it, when a fetus is born, it actually.
Or I guess it would be your central and your enteric nervous
That's
system.
right. So when a fetus is born, nobody can tell initially which end of the two nerve clusters is going to be the brain or the gut, and we know that it's well documented fact. But what we're not really thinking about is fascia. Do you know fascia is the only thing that cannot be removed from the human body? I can cut out every nerve, I can cut out every bone, I can cut every muscle, I can take every piece of hair off your body, but I can't remove fascia. Fascia is inside the muscle belly, fascia is around the muscle, fascia goes through it goes through the heart, through the brain, it's everywhere in the body. We are inextricably linked to fascia. And it has 100 trillion cells. So in organic density, it's 1,000 times more dense than the brain. So in our view, that's what's controlling the body, and that's what connects us. So what you saw, and this is what we've talked about, we use a process called tuning in. So the way that we know how to work in your body, you find us, there's no protocol. You find us going all over the body.
This was the next thing I wanted to ask you after asking you why people are stroking the fascia. So now we know fascia has all these cells. It's the method with which the body communicates.
Sure.
You told me about the speed of light, or faster than the speed of light.
So in the nervous system, the signal travels, roughly around the speed of sound, and but in the fascial network, it travels beyond our ability to measure it. So if you clench your jaw, you'll feel it in your right foot. Clench your right jaw, you'll feel it in your right foot instantaneously.
Yeah.
So it's like split second.
Crazy.
Yeah. Now if you go touch a stove,
Right. If you're listening in, clench your right jaw, you can feel it in your right foot.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
so fascia is signaling the body always. It's always telling us what to do, and it's feeding information to the command center, which is the brain, which is adapting all the other parts of the body to that experience.
Right.
Remember, the job of the brain is to evaluate the internal and external environments in the body and adapt us to those environments. Simply.
Okay, got it. So
the,
in addition to having all these practitioners working on me, now we get to the tuning in part that you talk about, because you didn't do necessarily like X-rays or MRIs on me
None.
when you came in. You started doing things that I've more experienced with, some of the things that people find to be a little bit woo, right? Like muscle testing, or what do they call it? Applied kinesiology.
Yeah.
This idea where you just say, whatever, you'll hold like a supplement in your hand and say, am I allergic to this, or should I take this, or should I not take it? So as you're working on me, you're actually audibly asking questions. Like as you're working on my hip, you're like, right hip, how much longer?
Yes.
And
I'm verifying it with my assistant.
So what is that? What are you doing?
So what we're doing is we tune into the body, and applied kinesiology is the best way. They call it muscle testing, but you don't have to test it. We're not testing muscle strength. Okay. So what we're doing is we're asking the body a question, and you witnessed it, you experienced it, right?
Oh, I absolutely, like you would say, like, right butt or whatever. Like after I was even thinking, gosh, I'm feeling what they're doing right now in my right butt. I feel like that needs to be released, and all of a sudden you're like, right butt needs to be released, and you're on it.
Right.
It's
so
creepy.
and what we also did is every time somebody connects to you, we call it connecting. We have a motion, a process of doing that. Every time we connect to you, you could feel the individual person connect to you in a different way.
Right.
So I introduced you to everybody who was touching you.
Now walk me through that we did, because that was just like 2 hours ago, laying on that table across from us. Walk me through what you did, because we had 4 people standing around.
So we have a way of doing this. I'm not going to show it for obvious reasons, because it's our intellectual property.
You're taking, by the way, a lot of what you're doing. You're basically going to be like licensing this.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
so by the way, if you're listening and you're like a practitioner or a fitness professional, like this is the kind of stuff you need to learn.
Yeah, so basically we have a methodology of touching the body. When we do it, and you felt all the people working around you, you felt I had Dr. Luke as an example. He's our full motion chiropractor, which is a lot different than chiropractic. Okay.
Right.
I asked him to
I've never had chiropractic like the way that Dr. Luke was doing it.
I know.
And I haven't seen 300 chiropractors like you have, but I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because I speak at a lot of these chiropractor conventions, and people come up and want to do adjustments and treatments on me. His stuff was a lot different.
It is a lot different. And what actually, so what happened is I had you, and I'll talk about that in a bit too. What I did is I had him disconnect from you, and then when he connected to you, you could feel the contrast.
Right. You had him not touch me, and then you put both his hands.
And I said, that's what Dr. Luke feels like.
And I could feel his energy.
And then I had
It was a unique signature.
Yeah, and then I had Jordan disconnect from you, and then touch you again. You feel his in a different part of your
and
body.
I felt him. I think it was in my stomach. I felt Dr. Luke. I think that was like my jaw and the back of my head.
And the guy George, who owns Curicology Labs, the labs we're going to talk about, I had him there. That was his first experience. So he is not a practitioner. He's never done this before. He'd actually never seen it. And I had him help us.
Right.
So it's not that we have to have this.
And he was getting freaked out because he had his hands on me. As you were working on me.
He could feel.
And I was feeling all this discomfort in my right shoulder as you were working on my hip.
Yeah.
And George's like, my right shoulder's hurting so bad.
Shoulder,
I feel my right shoulder. I'm like, holy cow, he's feeling what I'm feeling. And I know for some of you got a big eyebrow raise right now.
It sounds weird.
You have to experience it.
But once you experience, it's experiential, right?
Yeah.
And so what is we can when we tune in, we can feel everything in your body. So when I feel sensation here, that's where I'm either releasing or touching. And as soon as I do that, the muscle releases right away. And what we're just doing is we're communicating. The fascia has a language. You know when somebody walks in a room and they walk in a room and you can feel them, they're angry, or frustrated or nervous or anxious or something like that, and you can feel it. Well, what is that connection?
I always thought it was like the heart's electromagnetic field.
The heart math.
You talk about the heart math and how the heart's magnetic field emanates 15 feet off.
Listen, I have a lot of respect for heart math.
Energy.
I have a lot of respect for heart math. I just don't think the heart is in charge. That's not my personal view. You
think what you're feeling instead is
the fascia,
the actual electrical communication within someone else's fascia.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what we feel in the room now. The thing is, these signals are going all the time, 24 hours a day, without us even really knowing anything about it, because we don't know what it feels like. But as soon as I isolate the experience, and then I give you the contrast, then you know what it feels like. And it's like seeing, the best way I can say it, it's like seeing a dotted picture. You know those pictures with all the dots? And then you can see the picture to the dots. Once you've seen it...
It's 3D pictures that piss me off.
Yeah.
It takes me way longer than I think it should.
Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Right.
Okay, so so once I've identified and taught you how to do it, like George, his first time. So you don't have to be this master who studies for 25, 30 years. You can actually learn how to do it right away and start helping people. That was the difference.
Yeah.
And so we've mystified. In human beings, we want to make everything a process. We want to have people to have time and lineage in order to help you. So this is like, for example, the philosophy of the Human Garage. This is all new science. And instead of publishing it right now, we're delivering it.
And this biomechanical treatment that you do, from what I understand, like I flew down here to spend 3 days with you.
Yeah.
So normally someone would do like a handful of sessions to kind of set everything straight.
Right.
So that it's around 6 or so that someone would do.
85% of the people fit within a normal protocol. It's 6 sessions to align the body.
Right.
And then what we do is we move over to neurological and proprioceptive rehabilitation.
Okay, I want to talk about neurological and proprioceptive in a moment here.
We're going to get to that.
We're actually going to do a demo of neurological here live as we're recording.
Yeah.
But before we turn to that, you mentioned George, and what's the name of his labs?
Curicology Labs.
Curicology. So how are you marrying the biomechanical to the biochemical?
So this is actually back to this model here, right? So what happens is the goal is pain-free, full range of motion. Okay. So we have a motion mechanic that evaluates your walking, works with you, touches
that's all
you.
The muscle release, the alignment,
right.
the fascial.
And that's the magic. If that doesn't happen, all the rest of it still works, but it doesn't work as well. And then what we do is we come over here and we go to a full motion chiropractic, which you experienced, Dr. Luke. And that is like no other chiropractic experience you've ever had, and I know that. Mm-hmm. And so what he spent is months in here looking at our style. He was just open enough, not trying to do it his way. He adapted what he did to our style, and it just happened to work. And now we're going to teach it. And then we move over to our progression specialist. And what a progression specialist is a combination between a personal trainer, PT, and a neurologist. And they're combining all those attributes and in order to stabilize the body, because once I realign the body, you still have to, it's the neurological, it's the patterns and socialization of the body that fires those muscles. So if I've been like this for like 10 years, and I've worked out like that, my body knows that is...
When you say like this, what you just did is you dropped your right shoulder, brought your left shoulder up.
A lot of people like this. This is a really common one.
Right.
Actually, left shoulder up is the most common in America. So what happens is if I'm like this and I pattern all my muscles to fire like this, then what happens is when I change the structure, my brain still remembers the old way of firing the muscles. So we have to reprogram the neurology. Otherwise, you're coming back over and over again.
Otherwise, it's just like walking on a massage where everything feels good, but then you revert back to your old patterns.
Exactly. And see, that's the problem. That was my problem. I wasn't interested in doing something 2-3 times a week.
Right.
And it's funny because for the first time in my entire life, I have gone since November without any body work. And I've been working with Dr. Luke. We've been on this experimental process.
And you were getting body work like
twice a week,
3
all
times
the
a
time,
week, just stay put together.
My whole life, yeah. And our work is very, very, very physical and lots of weird angles.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression. I was crying earlier today. Like I had tears coming out my eyes. There's people like screaming in here, and part of that, as you explained to me, and I felt this, is an emotional release, not just like physical pain. Which is interesting. I find that fascinating that I have all these. Well, you explained it pretty well. You can build up traumas in fascia.
Well, so we build up trauma. Let's just say again, what was said is that trauma is stored in the fascia, and so trauma is subconscious. So without really going that far, we're going to say your body is your subconscious and your brain's your consciousness. And that's the duality that we have. It's the subconscious and the patterns and routines. We have to change that. Because if we don't, you're going to go out and your motion patterns are going to actually put you back into the same spot you were. Because all of the problems in this hip was all based upon what was already happening and had been going on for a long time. This didn't happen overnight. It was patterns.
Referring to my hip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we started to find patterns in people. Like we have people now coming from Japan and the UK. And I had this belief, almost everybody in the United States actually leans slightly to the right off of their center axis. And so I noticed that, and it was like almost everybody, and I thought, that's really weird. And then we had some people coming from the UK, and I had a theory that in the UK they would actually lean to the left. That sounds funny, but the truth, that's actually the truth, okay? So what happens is that you think about it, we're a right-dominant society. Everything that we have is on the right. We drive down the road, we look at all the buildings on the right, we walk on the right side of the road, we're always turning up. So millions of times in our life we're going like this, and eventually the body just makes it easy to do that. So most people, if you turn your head to the right and turn it to the left, you're going to be more restricted on the left.
Okay.
And unless you have an injury or something else that superseded this. And then so when I started having people come from the UK for alignment and people coming from Japan and places like that, we started noticing that they were all leaning to the left because they drive on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
So this is all about socialization and patterns that are built up in the body.
Crazy.
So what we do is we have these three things: the motion mechanic, we have the progression specialist, the full motion chiropractic, and we even do things like language alignment. We work with a company called Vocabulary, and we're just launching a language alignment protocol.
Vocabulary.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to show you this.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I didn't know about this.
And then we actually have a body flow because we were sending people out for massages, and they're coming back all beat up, and we didn't know why. And it's because the massages have to be done a special way. So we developed a process called body flow, and body flow only touches your body in a range of motion that works for the body. So if I go like this feels really good to your body.
You're rubbing your hand up and down my arm.
Right, and that feels good, right?
Right.
And then what happens if I go that way?
That's kind of weird.
It's tightening the muscle.
Yeah.
And in normal massage, effleurage, and massage, we're going like this.
Yeah, they're going like both ways.
And that's confusing to your brain, and that's why at the end of it you feel tired.
Yeah.
And so here, this is a stroke right there. This would be a stroke, and that feels good. And what it does is at the end of our body flow sessions, you feel like you want to go work out, not go home.
That's crazy. If you're listening right now, you got to tune in and watch the video at some point too. Amazing.
So what happens is body flow and then with biochemical wellness, and we'll get to that in a second because we'll get into your actual lab work. We tested you yesterday, and we got the lab to produce the results. That's why George was here.
Yeah.
So all of these things are all part of it. And to be clear about this too, we have medical doctor, chiropractors, we have nutritional and functional diagnostic nutritionists, we have progression specialists, which are rehab, we have body flow specialists, which is like a massage, but a lot different. We have our motion mechanics. We have the entire function
Right,
and
it's
practice
like
working
this
around.
team, this
It's a
human
team.
machine team.
But it's a team, and here's the difference. It's integrated medicine is 3 different disciplines or 4 different disciplines working in the same office. That's not integrated. Integrated is we work under the same philosophy.
Right.
And we're not in everybody's space. And when the hardest part that we had, I believe, was actually aligning the philosophies of our medical doctors, our nutritionists, because everybody is trained up in their own belief system.
So you had to systematize everything and then teach it to each of these different professionals who are
That's
here
right.
now working on each person that comes in through the door.
And every single employee of ours that comes through here, and we're like, I think we're just, because we just set up a bunch more, we're about 35, 37.
Employees.
Yeah, so we just hired about 12 more.
Wow.
And the first thing that they have to do is they have to come onto that table that you were on, and they have to assist and watch the therapy. Everybody gets our alignment protocol, but they have to actually help so they can see the magic themselves.
Yeah.
Because the experience you had today, you can't. I mean, we're explaining to people. They trust you. They're gonna say,
Right, but you have to experience it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we talk about neurology, because we're going to do a little demo of that,
Yeah.
tell me about the biochemical analysis, because I've done a lot of, I've done urine organic acids and blood testing and stool testing and genetic testing, saliva testing, you name it. I hadn't done this test before, so tell me about this test that you run on the people that come in here,
So-
saliva and urine, and how it works.
So this is about performance. So most clinical testings, one of the problems that I saw is that we're going too micro into the body. We're going too deep into specifics, and we're forgetting about the big picture. We always have to look at the big picture of things in order to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And in this particular case here, what we're talking about is peak performance, right? And when we're talking about peak performance, we're talking about being virtually limitless. And if we're going to get there, we need all systems to function. We have discovered that, first of all, that 75% of our baseline stress is actually created by malfunctioning biomechanics, which is also, again, controlled by neurology. So we have to address that if we want the body to feel good. Now, this is your test. Is it okay if I show it?
No, absolutely. I'm a closed book. I don't want anybody to know anything about me. No, seriously, dude.
Okay.
I think everybody listening on the podcast probably see me naked in a cold shower, so we can show this.
Okay, so...
And I'll put a download of these biochemical. Can you send this to me so people can see what it looks like?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
So some of the things we noticed is that we do a urine saliva test, and if I was to describe what this urine saliva test, maybe we'll put this in here. Can we put this in here? And that way we can focus on it. So what we're doing in a urine and saliva test, and this one in particular, is we're looking at everything that comes in the body and goes out of the body. And most tests are clinical. And what I want to say about clinical is clinical literally means blood, and either you're sick or you're not. But that's not true, is it? I mean, people come all the time, and they're like 55 years old, and they just, they're healthy their whole life and they got cancer. That's not true. It doesn't happen that way. That's something that happened over decades and decades of something going wrong. And so what happens is that the way we look at it is simply this. If we use subclinical lab panels, and this particular process that Curicology uses helped us understand the body in a different way. We were looking for things initially, like we had people who their muscles wouldn't properly release or their fascia wouldn't release, and we were trying to figure out why. So we started testing them. And then we realized that the value of testing people in order to do alignment work is that we actually we don't do the work unless we test people now, because there are things in there like if you're hydration, if you're dehydrated, which basically almost every time you see a guy in a gym with a white jug, he's the dehydrated one.
Creatine?
No, just a white jug of water.
Oh, okay.
The guys in the gym with a white jug of water, they're always dehydrated. Because water...
Wait, why?
Well, because you have to have sodium to balance your water. It's not about how much you
They're
drink.
not absorbing the water.
Right, and if you don't have enough sodium in, as you take the water and it collects all the salt, and you pee it out.
Yeah.
So then you're
Which I realized a while ago, so we're going to go woo-woo again. I sometimes will do shrooms, and I will ask my body questions and have a diary when I'm on a trip.
That's what we do, by the way.
Yeah.
It's asking the body questions.
And by the way, we got to get back to how you inspired some of the things you've learned through like THC and what you call it, spritz.
All right, so we're going to do it. My wife is going to do, she wants to be the national salesperson for Sprig Soda.
We'll get into Sprig Soda in a second. But this shroom trip where I took a relatively trippy dose, which I'll do about every quarter, and then I'll just sit there with a journal and I'll ask questions of myself. And I kept seeing like these visions of like cracked earth and all the nature around me. I could see like cracks in the dirt. Everything was dehydrated. My lips felt chapped. And the thing I kept writing over and over again was your body seeks water. And this was written in my journal like 20 times. And I drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
But I got out of that experience and I started really researching water.
Yeah.
And I started adding minerals to water.
Minerals are
and
important.
exposing the water like infrared light.
Yeah.
And structuring my water.
Sure.
And using like these salts and making what I call soul water, where I'll set the water out in the sunshine with the salts in it. And all of a sudden my body feels amazingly different when I'm drinking this good, clean, mineral-rich water, even though I was drinking water before. And so you found
well, let's talk about the importance
all sorts of things on the lab results, but go ahead.
Well, let's talk about water just really quickly. So what happens is it's about the balance between your alkaline ions and your hydration, because hydration is the water intake has to be mirrored with the minerals or the alkaline ions, especially salt. So it, as I understand it, and I might not be scientific on this, but it basically one molecule of H2O bonds to 3 molecules of sodium. And so if you don't have the sodium in your system, as the water goes through your system, it collects the sodium and then you pee it out. And then you don't have enough sodium to hold the water in your system anymore. So part of it is it's about having the balance. And we tend to do things in America very
Which is why drinking like Gerolsteiner is way different than drinking like Aquafina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we need to put a little bit of, we need to watch our sodium balance, and most people don't really know. And one of the things that we learned here is that we don't recommend supplements or programs, with the exception of a few, like we're going to talk about the
like
power
black cherry ketones. Yeah, we'll get to the other
power
ones in a second.
There's a few ones that help everybody in every situation, but most of the time we don't recommend supplements unless we know, because not taking something that you need, your body will find a way to get it somehow. You know, as you know, that even in extreme circumstances, it'll convert certain proteins into glucose. And that's why ketosis is so hard to stay in. But taking something your body doesn't need is 100 times worse than not taking something, taking something your body doesn't need.
Is worse than not taking that at all.
That
it's like the same thing as taking a bad fish oil is worse than not taking a fish oil at all.
Yeah, because if you take something that your body doesn't need, it has a compensation. The body's about balance. So, you know, I grew up in the world of, and this is my whole life was, if it's good, I'm going to do more of it, right? So if this much is good, more is gooder.
Right, right.
And that's simply not true. The body requires balance.
That vocabulary program you're talking about.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm going to show you some stuff on that too. So one of the things is to make sure that the alkaline ions or the sodium is in balance, because it's about hydration in the body. And the body, the fascia, carries roughly about 80% of the water in the body. It moves it around. And you saw that video, right? The fascia magnified 25 times. Yep. You see, you just go on YouTube, and this
I'll
is
put a link to it at bengreenfieldfitness.com/human-garage. What's the name of the video again?
Fascia magnified 25 times. If you watch that, that's what changed my entire scope of fascia. I'd seen cadaver fascia, I'd seen fascia on chicken and beef and everything else, but I'd never seen it live. And when you see it live, it's amazing. Actually, do you want to put it on video? I can actually do it.
I'll link to it in the show notes.
Okay, sure, fair enough. And what you'll see is that the fat is in the fascia, the blood vessels in the fascia, you've got the lymph nodes in the fascia. Everything is contained in the fascia and it's moving water around. So when the fascia doesn't have enough water, it stars and it starts to get tight. And then that's when we get immobility and we start to get problems. And I had a client that was driving up, he works at a nutrition company, and he's driving up from Laguna Beach here for his alignment sessions. And we got to the 6th session and he's working with my staff and there was no results. And like his pain was still there, functioning, no results. And what happened is somehow he got through our process. We didn't quite get his test done in time. His results got delayed. And so we're 3 weeks into it, and he's not having anything, and that's unusual. Somebody doesn't have the results that because we have a very high success rate with helping people in mechanics, very high. So when it doesn't happen, it's like all hands stop, we try to figure it out. And what happened in this situation, it was really cool, because this guy, when he came up, I looked at his lab test, and he was chronically dehydrated. And chronic dehydration, you can't just go drink, and tomorrow you're good. It takes 3, 4, 5 weeks, even 3 months to properly hydrate the body again. And so what happened was I sent him away for 3 weeks with a hydration protocol. He came back up the next session, boom, we started working. 2 weeks later came back and all the results of it. And that's what we needed, because the body was, at nighttime, it wasn't moving, and if it doesn't have the water, the fascia says, it starts squeezing and tightening, and that's where the compression comes from.
What did you find on my lab results?
Well, it's interesting. So I noticed that there's a couple things. Now, this is not, if you went and did a blood panel, this is not a blood panel. So
No,
if
it's
I
way different.
so if I was to say what blood does or what normal clinical is, that's if a car analogy, since we're at a garage, is that's how fast your car is running. So clinical is how fast your car is driving, 60 miles an hour, and subclinical is how hard your engine's running, your RPMs.
Right.
So this is a subclinical result. So if we want to optimize your performance, we want everything to beat down the green in here.
Mhm.
And so what we noticed
So there's like red, yellow, and green.
red, yellow, and green. Green in the center, yellow on each, yellow, red on each side.
Yep.
And there's
To show
various.
whether you're too low or too high or just right.
Right. And so in your particular case, what we found is your adrenals. Well, first of all, nobody in LA has good adrenals.
Uh-huh.
It's very, very rare, and that's part of the way that we live. But the way you
Right.
live and you take care of your body, you can tell the
My
most
adrenals
important.
are great.
And your oxidative stress is great. Those are the two markers. If you're a problem there, then we have other things, right?
Right.
But if there's a problem there, it's hard to fix. Yours is your liver's working a little bit too hard, and I notice you take creatine every day,
Mm-hmm.
and so the
Take
body.
about 5 grams of creatine every day.
Right. And you're also flying and traveling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So your liver was overworking, your kidneys are overworking,
Mhm.
okay? And so what we would do is we would support those two so that they come back into the green.
And how would you support those two? Would that be with this hydration approach that you talked about?
Well, no, that would actually be
Like milk thistle extract or something like that?
well, we have proprietary blends that we use at the garage that would be a liver support and a kidney support.
Okay.
And we're not. I mean, this isn't unique to us. I mean, there's
Right.
a lot of companies
Right.
that have.
People are going to ask, so I'm just going to ask right now.
Yeah.
Tell me an example of one thing that would be a liver support and one thing that would be a kidney support.
Well, you just already said it. You know, liver support. One of the things would
Like
be
your milk thistle
milk
extracts,
yeah.
diethylmethane, and
Yeah, and so
glutathione.
we use
Gland.
glandulars.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and from New Zealand lambs.
Gotcha.
I don't know why New Zealand, but they seem to be the best lambs in the world.
Yeah, it's a I believe it's a type of protein. It's like an A2 protein.
Yeah.
And raised very organically. Like I've used thyroid glandulars before. This stuff called Thyroid Gold.
Yeah.
You want to get from like New Zealand.
Yeah, for
or
sure.
Argentina. Those are the two places you want to get like glandular extracts.
So we have glandular extracts as part of a normal blend. You can go into any nutrition support store, and they'll usually have them. These are different. They're practitioner brand, and almost every practitioner. There's other companies out there that have practitioner supported products, but these are just specific to this
Right.
test.
Right.
So we would support your liver and your kidneys,
Mhm.
and then what I noticed, and you already knew
Oh,
this.
and then kidneys. Give me an example of something you do for the kidneys.
Well, it's just again, it's a glandular.
Same thing.
Yeah,
Right,
same.
okay.
Yeah, with a
Okay.
bunch of
Okay.
nutraceuticals.
So if I really wanted to do this completely naturally, I could just like start to eat more organ meats, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But most people don't go out and hunt
Right.
and eat.
Right. And harvest liver. Yeah. Or know how to make liver taste really good.
Harvest liver.
Yeah.
Wow, that
Which
sounds,
I do.
that
I
sounds
can make
scary.
liver, I can make liver taste bomb or heart. You soak it in raw milk, you chop it up, you dredge it through egg, a little coconut flour, fry it in butter with some onions and bacon.
Yeah.
Good liver, dude. Good. I'll send you my recipe.
You know what? I actually I'll just come and eat it with you
Just come up to Spokane.
because there's no way I'm going to cook it.
Well, liver. All right.
Okay, and I don't have the heart to do it.
Oh, I'll have you hunt the animal too. We can go in the backyard and get the chicken.
Yeah. So one of the things you already knew is your digestion is a little weak, and as a
Right.
result, you don't
It's always
metabolize.
been my weak spot, my digestion.
Right. As a result, you're not properly metabolizing protein and carbohydrates.
Wow, protein and carbs are really low.
Right,
Wow.
so that affects your performance.
Mhm.
Now, at your age, you're still piling through that, but give yourself another 5 to 10 years, and that starts to really affect the body.
Right.
And so, from a peak performance athlete, we need to support a little bit of liver, a little bit of kidney, and support your digestion, and those two markers will move back into
Right,
the
more
center.
more enzymes, hydrochloric acid.
Hydrochloric acid. You can't just support it with enzymes because
Right.
you need the HCl
Right.
to have the proper.
Yeah. What do you think about fasting? I had a fascinating discussion the other day with a guy I was hanging out with.
I love fasting.
Yeah, exactly with
With
ketones.
ketones.
Exactly because he was
With
talking.
BA
and this is
with
like the one frustrating
BA
thing for me
keto
as an
fuel.
athlete. I don't fast as much as I know is good for me, whether
Sure.
it's dry fasting or 24-hour fasting, because I'm always competing, right? So
Yeah.
my body always needs these calories, so I can train. It's this vicious cycle where the gut never gets a break. That's actually as I begin to phase into the next part of my life, which is going to involve a lot more hunting and spearfishing and a lot less
That's awesome.
hardcore Spartan racing. I'm going to begin implementing fasting a lot more so I can relieve the liver and the kidneys and the gut with a lot of this stress. And I think that's key for a lot of people.
So-
I think some people just need to not eat for 7 days.
I think, fasting is interesting. There's lots of different
Just
views on
drink
it.
black cherry ketones. for
Black cherry
7 days.
ketones. I think,
I could actually have this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
We need more. We need
We're
more.
running low.
We need more
Yeah.
BA keto fuel.
Yeah.
So the idea is that one of the things is in a daily routine is to actually start, and intermittent fasting is actually a good place to go. So a lot of people intermittent fast, and even as an athlete, you can actually find your way to do that. But
Oh yeah, sure. I do that. I do the compressed feeding window, right? Like so I'll not eat for 12 to 16 hours every day. But I think there's a difference between that. There's something magical that happens because I've done this a couple times.
Yeah.
About 72 hours in
Yeah.
of just like not digesting things.
Well, let's
As a matter of fact.
but let's
a
talk
little
about why we need to
bit why we need to
fast more.
fast more. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about
I'll
let's
take
go-
that. I've had Jason Fung on my podcast. We kicked the fasting horse to death.
Good.
I want to focus on a couple of other things though, and I'll link to that.
Yeah.
We literally covered fasting for like 90 minutes on a previous show, and I want to talk with you guys about some of the things that you're not going to hear from anybody else. So you've got your biochemical analysis.
Yeah.
Now I also, related to biochemistry, before we get into the neurology, because I know we have a couple demonstrations
Sure.
we want to do, there are a couple things related to biochemistry. Now, you also gave me a curcumin, and I took some of this curcumin.
It's not just a curcumin.
And this is related to Frank. You early on in the podcast just now, you were talking about ulcerative colitis and Frank, how he started taking ketones, that started to fix some of the issues.
So
And
what?
was
what
it curcumin that he started taking as well?
Actually, it was curcumin that he started taking. So what
Okay.
happened was, he was a Mr. North America, and it was the story is really funny because we were at the same bodybuilding show. This is
Right.
back in the Western Canadians, and I was on the show, and this one middleweight won the show, and I said, and I was a heavyweight, and I said, I'm going to meet this guy one day, and here it is 30 years later, we're working together. He was just before his story is amazing. Franco Cavallari, PhD. He actually he was going out to a competition, and he got taken to the hospital with his gut problem, and they diagnosed him with ulcerative colitis. And he had been like a scientist. He's a scientist. He had actually been documenting everything. He actually went back and noticed that during periods that while he's taking curcumin, he had felt better. And basically, he went out and he said, wait, because they wanted to remove his colon. And he said, wait a second here. And what he did is he took some time and he said, wait, stop. We're not going to do the colon removal. And he went back and started loading up on curcumin, and all his symptoms went away. So he spent the next 10 years of his life in the lab trying to understand why. And what he discovered is that in curcumin, there are 3 curcuminoids. And somebody want to give me the ORAC scale, please? I'm going to show them.
There's 3 curcuminoids.
Yeah, so and he named them 3 curcuminoid, 1, 2, and 3, very original. And the third curcuminoid was the anti-inflammatory property. And this is the cool part because, and this is the third curcuminoid. He actually isolated it and then put it as a patent, and so it is a patented ingredient. And what it does in this Power Kirk, we got 30 and 50.
So looking at the label, curcumin, dimethoxycurcumin, and bis-dimethoxycurcumin. That's the third curcumin?
Yeah, that's the third
Okay.
curcuminoid.
That's why you call it BDM 30?
Yeah, so this is actually Power Kirk 30 is a retail version. This is a practitioner version.
Okay.
And these products here, as you take them and you feel it within 45 minutes. You feel your brain calm down.
No,
your
it's great.
muscle.
I don't think I've ever taken that much curcumin all at once, admittedly, but it's crazy.
Well,
And
so
you literally feel, it's not like you're high, but it's
You're
just that you have like this crazy
calm
focus. Yeah, this
and
crazy
focus.
calm. Like normally I would take curcumin to target inflammation.
well, this is
right?
what it is.
Or to
inflammation.
improve bioavailability
But
or
let's-
something else so that mix it.
Why aren't you calm? It's inflammation.
Yeah.
And inflammation here is inflammation here.
Right. It's that
And
whole
so pressure here is
cortisol-
pressure
cortisol,
here.
inflammation, HPA
Right,
axis cycle.
right.
Yeah,
right,
so you
yeah.
just basically take boatloads of curcumin to fix that.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
Okay, so
so-
this stuff's called Power Kirk.
30
Power Kirk, CURC.
and
And you
Power
have
Kirk
this
30.
made for you in this special blend of
Right.
curcumins.
So let me tell you, this is the ORAC. ORAC Labs ORAC Labs does, and I'll send you this as well. Has independently rates anti-inflammatory products, and they rate turmeric at anti-inflammatory properties 381.
Okay.
Curcumin 95% standardized, which is out there.
Right. Which you'll find in most supplements.
Is 4,500.
Uh-huh.
This is 900,000.
There's like almost 1 million.
Yeah, almost $1 million.
That's nuts.
And that's why you feel it in 30 to 45 minutes. You feel it take over.
Now I have to admit, like this isn't something I would use right after workout because you don't want to quell the inflammatory response too much, right? You still want the hormetic effects. Of exercise.
But for after,
later, like before bed or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So what you want is you want to drive up the inflammation and then calm it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in this particular case, what Franco had done is he had patented this, and this patent is actually what's interesting enough about it is that we've been using it clinically, and in the clinical results, it's unbelievable. Things that are happening to people that we never even thought.
You told me you give this to people before they come in for the treatment with you.
Yeah, and it's 30 minutes. Well, because what happens is they start off there, and about 15 minutes by the time they're on the table and starting to work.
So they walk in, they take it, then they're on the table within 15 minutes.
And it took our treatment time down 30 minutes.
Wow.
By giving 2 pills. Now, the equivalent
because your body melts?
Yeah, but the equivalent of taking this, Power Pro 50, it's the same equivalent of 2 of these as you'd have to eat 125 pounds of turmeric to get this value.
That's nuts.
Because we get people all the time say, I take curcumin.
Yeah.
But 125 pounds. And you can feel it.
I like that. So a couple of other things that I want to talk about from a biochemical standpoint that I don't want to forget to ask you about. Number one, you handed me, as we were discussing, a bag of something you said I need to take before when I get home to the wifey. Libido tea. What is the libido tea that you guys do here?
Okay, so it's just a libido tea. It's got a bunch of ingredients.
Somebody tossed me a bag of that so I can read the because it's pretty much everything I've ever researched for sex or libido in a tea.
And we work with a company called Elemental Wisdom to do this. Okay,
Elemental Wisdom.
And we use Adam. We use him to a bunch of his products and as part of our line. But it's all about providing performance, and you can read the ingredients. But this is pretty crazy.
Okay, so I would take this before sex. Like Sustanche.
No, you're gonna when you take this, it's gonna turbocharge your sex.
I don't know. I'll try in the middle of the afternoon so I'll walk around with a boner the rest of the day. Katuba, Maria, Epimedium, Fenugreek, Eleuthero, nettles, which I harvest at home. I make a tea out of wild nettles at home. They're amazing. Yohimbe, Lishan, Heishu Wu, which is like a Chinese adaptogen, and cinnamon.
Yeah.
I can't wait to try this, dude. I'm going to give it a go.
It's incredible. So let me take a step back and tell you why we have these problems in the first place. So we started
libido problems.
Well, I'm going to talk about just overall problems. So when we've discovered in our findings with over 100 lab tests, we show that our baseline stress, 75% of our baseline stress, is caused by ill-effective biomechanics. So what happens if you have a stress cut, right? So if all of a sudden your mechanics is producing 75% of your sympathetic response, when your body's in stress, it suppresses dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all the good hormones are suppressed when you're in stress. So if your mechanics aren't right and your alignment's not right, your body's automatically in stress, and what it's doing is it's suppressing the hormones that you want. And this causes a series of issues. Like for men, as we get later in life, it starts to cause erectile dysfunction. And also, one of the other problems that comes up with this is it's things like pregnancy. We have a lot of women coming here that want to get pregnant. Simone Golger is one of our nutritionists, and she's been a nutritionist for 25 years. She's 20 years. She's 40 years old and had in vitro IVF 6 miscarriages, and she came in through our alignment protocol, then did our biochemical wellness. And our nutritionist at the time said, we don't want you to don't try to get pregnant yet. We want to get your body ready, and bang, pregnant and held the baby. And we have this happen over and over and over again and you see these stories all the time. That's our key.
Crazy. We keep getting these deliveries of magical ketones to the table.
Magical keto fuel.
My brain's spinning right now.
Yeah, keto fuel. So the idea was, she, like a lot of women try to get pregnant, you hear the stories, they'll go IVF and then they stop and get pregnant. Why? Because stress is the impactor. But what is stress? Everything external to us is a stressor.
Okay.
Our response to that stressor is a stress response. And we have to separate stressors from stress, because the stressor is what causes us to have stress, our response is. And if our baseline stress is too high, then our stress, those outside stressors can make us feel overwhelmed and stuff like that. And more importantly, as that baseline stress, as our gut problems happen, as we get more inflammation, if we have more pressure in our gut, which is causing problems with the GI tract, and it's not relieving because we're not squatting, all these other things start to happen. As we get older, it gets harder and harder to run. And the whole aging thing is really, really crazy because it's not about age. It's about maintenance. Like you can take a car, a 1932 Mercedes, and if you maintain it, it drives as good today as it did in 1932. Actually, with today's technology, it actually drives better, right? It gives you the limitless ability to perform. And what we're talking about is we're talking about reducing the overall stress in your body by bringing down your baseline stress, being your, first of all, alignment. Once you're aligned, now you have less stress, your body's moving more fluidly. Then we start taking out all of the pressure in the gut and all the pressure through the muscles, and that's how we do the alignment. Now your body's in less stress, and you felt that last night and today. It's a really weird feeling.
Yeah.
So what happens when those things happen is we're able to start, our good hormones start rising naturally. My testosterone 5 years ago was 200. Today it's 900. And I don't take testosterone, I don't take supplements
That's pretty
for
good
it.
for total testosterone for a guy who's maybe 13 years older than me, right?
Yeah, so yeah. Oh, by the way,
we have the same birthday.
we share the same
December
birthday,
20th,
December 20th.
1981. You can send your gifts to.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of other questions, specifically regarding kind of like the biochemical component before we turn to neurology, because
Yeah.
I think a cool place to leave people with would be like a live demo of this neurology component.
Yeah.
But first of all, you are very into essential oils here,
Yeah,
which you find a lot of massage clinics. and
Absolutely.
places.
But
But
different.
tell me, yeah, when I came in, and one of the first things I noticed was this intense aroma of scent. I brought my boys in, you were like, putting in their hair, and they felt amazing, and this stuff's called oil wizardry.
Essential oil wizardry.
Essential oil
Yeah,
wizardry.
Dr. Nick.
Why? Yeah, because I've dialogued with
He's
Dr.
awesome.
Nick. I
He's
looked him
awesome,
up. He's
yeah.
in Oregon since then. And he's blasting these oils with like sound frequencies and doing all
You know
this
what's
things.
crazy?
So tell me about the essential oils.
Wow, when you go there, he'll actually take the essential oils. First of all, oils are not created equally.
Yeah.
And a lot of the big ones out there, multi-levels, they're good, but they're not even close to this.
Right.
And so what happens is that these oils alone, when he puts them in, you'll smell them, and then he puts them in a frequency bowl, and you take it out, it smells different.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
A frequency bowl, I mean, he's actually using like sound
crystal bowl,
frequencies.
sound frequency,
Yeah, to
yeah.
embed the essential oils with frequencies.
And again, I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes.
Right.
And so what happens is
I have a whole bunch of his oils on my desk back home now. I've been using them all the time in my diffuser. And granted, I know for those of you listening in that most of what you'll find at Greenfield Fitness Systems and on my website is this Young Living essential oil stuff. But I'm actually talking with Nick right now. I know you guys are doing this too.
Same thing,
Kind of like
private
making some of his
label.
oils available to you guys. What's this
So
on right
this,
now?
okay.
Okay.
That one there. So what I want you to do is
Okay.
rub it in your hands.
Okay.
Okay, this is how we get lots of energy from people. You want to get it off.
Okay, yeah.
You're at a conference.
Yeah.
Go over your auric field now. Just gonna go over here. I know it seems a little weird, but just slowly go over your body, and you'll feel as you go over your body, you'll feel like a tingling sensation without touching it.
It's crazy.
Like if I go like this.
Oh, it's crazy, dude.
And so this is how we get the
You
energy.
guys gotta watch this video. Go to bengreenfieldfitness.com/human garage. Watch this video. It's crazy. You can actually feel the energy from this oil.
So what we do is
Coming off your
we use
hands.
the oils to help
Little
stimulate
Tai Chi.
alignment
Yeah.
of the nervous system, because for us it's all about alignment, right? And
Yeah.
alignment of the nervous system is super important as well, right? And we use it for different things. Like here's a good one, if you ever want to know. And
What was this one we just used to clear negative
that's called
energy?
psychic protection.
Psychic protection.
That's the one we
so
get.
when you're hanging out with energy vampires, do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
They're actually drinking this stuff.
Peppermint.
Oh, peppermint.
Yeah, for
Little
digestion.
neutral,
You got
Yeah. Well,
So if you got gas, you put that out, and guess what? You also
a lot of people are going to flip out because we just dumped essential oils into our mouths. And,
These
like,
ones
I've
are-
talked to a lot of essential oil people who say that that's it's caustic, or I think my microphone's falling out here, by the way. I'll fix this real quick just so you guys don't lose audio.
Okay, so this is the essential oils. If you just take a little peppermint and you have bloating or gas, and you rub it on
Right.
your tummy, and you take a drop or two in your mouth, instantaneously within 10 minutes it starts to relieve the bloating.
Yeah.
And so
You told me about this when I asked you that question. You said you just you told me to put the pressure on the
Yeah.
ileocecal valve
Right.
to fix some of those issues we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
and then you basically rub peppermint, like a digestive oil, around in your belly.
yeah, that's a solution. That's a temporary solution, but the better one is to just fix the problem, which we do.
Gotcha.
So here's the thing. Here's a trick that people can do at home right now. You want to relax your body? Okay, as you saw on the table, we're rubbing fascial lines to relax the body, right?
Mhm.
So let me show you something we discovered. Okay. So the first one is you rub your tummy this
Okay.
way.
Clockwise?
Yeah, and as you rub
Okay.
your tummy clockwise, you'll start to feel your glutes, your calves, your hamstrings, the back of your neck start to relax. Feel that?
Crazy.
Okay, now what I discovered was, and it took us a while to figure out why, when a baby's formed off the uteral wall, the umbilical cord actually grows like this, and when the baby
The
keeps
umbilical
spinning-
cord curls clockwise.
yeah, and actually we grow, we're spun into existence. So where else? I figured, well, where are the primary fascial lines? Where do they meet? Well, another one's on the head. So the head go like this way,
You do the back of your head.
and if you
clockwise.
do this, what you'll feel is your neck and shoulders start to relax.
It's crazy. All this stuff is just like so simple.
These are body hacks.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
our
It's
whole
simple
thing
body
is-
hacks. And the crazy thing is, when you're doing the body work on me, same thing. I noticed you guys are always going clockwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do
And when
other,
you go counterclockwise,
other
like,
directions
yeah.
for things.
Yeah,
Now,
it's
here's another
crazy.
one. Here's another one. From the finger to
Okay.
the palm,
Yeah.
Go like
move,
this.
Move clockwise around the finger to the palm.
and what you'll feel is your shoulder, your scap, your neck, your relax.
It all relaxes.
And then let's go the other way.
Amazing.
So what we did is our fundamental belief is the human body is designed to heal itself. We didn't have doctors 2,000 years ago, so how do we do it? And what we're doing is we're learning all the things. I believe that somewhere around the world, in some sort of form, these things were known by somebody.
Right.
And what we're doing is, and
You're actually, instead of keeping them a secret, you're actually systematizing them and teaching the people here.
absolutely, that's what we're doing.
You're like an open book. Okay, so one other question before we do the neurology.
Yeah.
Because I know people are going to ask this too. This THC thing. What did you call it?
So that's Sprig inspired.
Sprig inspired. Okay.
So
fill me in on
there's a
this.
company in Orange County that makes a soda called Sprig, and it has a THC isolate. And
Okay.
I've never been one for marijuana.
What's a THC isolate?
Well, it's what they do is they extract the molecule without the terpenes.
Okay.
Terpenes are like color, the flavor, or the experience. So each terpene you go and you have THC, and you have all kinds of different. With THC, you have all kinds of different, highs and indicas and all that. But at the end of it, terpenes, and that's, by the way, this is why Dr. Nick's stuff is so great, because he used terpenes. He was a research scientist. He was formulating for the U.S. government, and he found terpenes that we could take out and use them in oils. That's what same thing that they were using in marijuana for all kinds of other things. So with THC, and you take the isolate, what happens is that you set the intention, and I'm happy to say that all these thought processes that came here came because I would immerse myself in an experience to want to understand my body.
You used plant medicine to discover a lot of these things.
Right. So I went out and legally got a license
Yeah.
and went to my dispensary, and I would take a little. I'm not going out to get stoned and wired and baked. That's not my
Right.
goal. My goal is to take a little bit to help free my brain
Yeah.
from all of the.
I do this. Like I write fiction on microdoses of LSD, and like I mentioned, I'll do a shroom trip every quarter or so. But I've never heard of sprig water.
Well, it's
crazy.
a soda, and it's just
Yeah, very interesting.
I've never been able to have an isolate before, and I
Yeah.
just noticed that whatever I set my intention at, all of a sudden I would get it. So my intention was to understand my body and understand why it was doing what it was doing. And what I do is I would take and I would write all kinds of notes. So I'd feel everything in my body, and I'd write the notes down. And in the morning I'd get up and interpret them,
Yeah.
because the interpretation is some. And
Yeah.
you know, sometimes when you have like my body goes through these series of things, like the whole thing about the pressure.
Mhm.
I had to have my ileocincal. One day it blocked 40 times, and as soon as it blocks, I feel it pull tight on my right foot and my left knee, because it's pulling up like this and it's
Yeah.
rotating the femur. And the second that happened, I'd release it, and this is what led me to the understanding how to properly pressure release the
Yeah.
intestinal tract.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that I would actually sit down and take a microdose, and then I would think through the process, and I would feel the sensations in my body, and that's how all of this new stuff
Oh,
is
I mean,
coming up.
from singing and songwriting to fiction, it's kind of funny because my wife and I are like yin and yang, like we're complete opposites. So she goes to bed, she doesn't use a sleep mask or earplugs or essential oils, or I'm over there on my side of the bed like dialing in the temperature to 60 degrees and putting on my princess sleep mask and putting on my sleep phones with my binaural beats and my essential oils. And she also like, I'll write and I'll do fiction and I'll create songs and play my ukulele. And a lot of times, like I'll smoke or vape some THC beforehand, or I'll use shrooms, or I'll use LSD, and she's often giving me a hard time saying, why do you need to do that? Why can't you just be creative? And I'm like, well, actually, I'm a firm believer that like a lot of these plants around us, they're designed to allow us to have breakthroughs. I mean, in my opinion, it's just a cool way of tapping into a lot of what's on this planet as far as plant-based medicine.
So let me tell you what's happening now. I was doing this consistently for a long time, so I could learn how to help people. That was my intention, and it goes back to a personal story. Ooh. Don't think I want to go there. We had that one yesterday, right? So it's a personal story. It's really close to me. It's about my brother and his death.
This is what I love about you, Gary. You're very emotional. Like you wear your heart on your sleeve.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So what happened was, actually, I think I can talk about it now. My brother committed suicide 4 years ago, and he was 35 years with back pain. And after that, it was like, that's when the Human Garage started, because I knew I at that point, I could no longer stop. I had to figure this out. No one else should ever have to go through. He went through 35 years of surgery. He went through medication, and finally he just decided it was too much. He ended his life. And
breathe through it.
so that experience is, and when I look back at it, when I had it with you on the table, you were helping me, and that's the whole thing. You were on the table. And I got to a spot, and then that's when you opened up to me, and you felt it. Remember?
Yeah.
And you said that, and it was my it was
It's like my whole body was electrified.
yeah, and that was my my experience. I was trying to my whole life figure out my problems, but then when it became my brother's problems, then it became something I had to do something. Yeah, where it triggered is. He's 13 years older than me, and I'm 13 years older than you. And so that's when you said your date when we're doing the lab work, that's what caught me off guard.
Same birthday.
And I went home that night and I thought about it and stuff like that. And the crazy part about it is that that's the drive. That's why I can't stop. Because no one in the world should ever have to go through what he did.
Yeah.
And so back to the THC, and I was using it every day, just a little bit. Not, like I said, not crazy, just enough to lighten up the thought process. And then it came to a point through my alignment, because now my nervous system is calm. I don't need adjustments. I don't need body work like I used to. I don't have digestive. I don't take very many supplements at all right now. I basically take RB, a keto fuel, and I take the Power Curt. I take a thing we call green pills.
Oh, your wife's back there. Does she ever take the libido tea?
Well, libido tea we use all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't take a lot of supplements right now because my body's feeling good. I only take what I need when I need it. And but what started happening is I started having those experiences during my normal day. Not in a bad way, but I started seeing things differently. And so without
when you weren't using THC,
yeah,
that's what I found too.
Yeah,
It's completely changed my personality and opened me up.
Yeah.
When I use plant-based medicine.
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
It is.
So Sprig Water. If you're in California, have a license. Look it up. Sounds intriguing. I'll try some at some point and let you guys know what it's like. Now, as promised, we also wanted to do like a demonstration for you guys. This is something I haven't yet done, but one of the things that we discussed was neurology, and how that's a component of these sessions that you do. So let's talk about neurology and how we can work this into today's episode.
Okay, so neurology, first of all, the key thing is you saw we have big results in very few treatments. And that's and when you change the body, like you saw yours, it was like this to this in one treatment. And
my jaw, my face, my body.
Everything. And so in the period of 6 treatments, we do what traditional physical medicine tries to do in a year, 2 years, or 3 years. So we're doing this in a couple of weeks. So the body doesn't have the time to adapt. So we have to give the body new neurological inputs. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to do this. Like you see a lot of the CrossFitters out there right now, they are like working out with, like have braces, because we do with a lot of CrossFitters. And when you have a pain and you work through it, there is a neurological functional problem, and if you don't address it, it's going to impact your body.
Just cover it up with kinesio tape.
Yeah. So I have no problem with kinesio tapes and everything else, but we need to fix why that problem is.
Right.
And that problem is about the way the brain, and you, at the end of it, we're doing some really heavy neurological work to reprogram your gait.
Yeah.
And you saw
you did some stuff on me that we can't show on camera because you're still licensing it. I know.
That's right.
You don't want to show it to the public too soon, but it's stuff I've never done before.
Right, and you'd see how precise it was, and what we were doing is we're repatterning your movement.
You were like resisting me as I was moving through specific ranges of motion.
And giving you neurological inputs as well. And so what we do is we have a...
tapping me.
Right, slapping, tapping, that's right.
Yeah.
And then we also have a series of lower grade neurological inputs. So like for example, one of my issues was is I had a vestibular issue. My vestibular, too, I'm standing here like this. My brain thought I'm leaning like this. If you were just stand here, go ahead and try and lean to the side. You feel all these muscles start to engage.
Yeah.
So anytime you go off your baseline, your center line, everything on the other side tries to pull you back.
Right.
So if your brain can only deal with the information it gets, and it adapts us to that environment. So my brain, my vestibular was off to the right. So I was wanting to lean to the right, and my entire life, this side of my body always felt tight.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because nothing I could do was and that was fighting against me. So one of the things I couldn't get through, I needed to find out why I still needed to have body work, and we started addressing the neurology. And so Yari, who's our head of our
Yari
progression,
back there.
so she's the head of our
come on up.
progression
Come on up to the
specialist.
camera.
She runs our rehab progression specialist department, and what happened was that she showed me that I had a vestibular issue, and as part of the vestibular issue, what was happening was my vestibular would be off. I would think my body would feel like I'm this, my brain's firing these muscles.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my programming exercises was actually a neurological drill, and I would do it, and my vestibular would pop up, and I would feel good, and about 3-4 hours later, I'd start to feel it tightening up again. I'd do the drill. And so what we want to do at the end of this is give you neurological drills to help your body maintain stability so that you don't functionally go back into those old patterns.
Got it.
So we're gonna actually
Make
do a little
things
drill.
stick.
Yeah, make things stick.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is basically the component where you put yourself out of business by ensuring that the work that you're
It's
doing
supposed
actually stays.
Look at there's 7 billion people in the world,
Yeah.
and
abundance.
there's about 6.999 billion
Yeah.
we haven't touched yet,
All right.
so we don't need to have them coming
Fair
back all
enough.
the time.
All right, so show me how this works. And again, for those of you who are listening, you can always watch what we're about to do at bengreenfieldfitness.com/humangarage.
I'll set up watch.
Okay,
What's up, Ben?
what's going on?
Okay, we're good.
Hey, can you guys?
Yeah.
Moving a little bit closer to this wall.
Okay, get a little closer to the camera.
So-
All right.
So I see that you have something going on your right side of your body. Your knees kind of internally
Mhm.
rotated, right?
Yep.
You got some stuff. So what I'm gonna do right
Let's move
now, can you
Let's
guys
go.
tune in? Gary, can you tune in with me for a second to see if it's
Yeah.
eyes moving to the right?
Okay, eyes move to the right. Eyes
Okay.
move to the right.
Yep,
Yeah, eyes move to the right.
yep.
Oh,
Okay,
we lost
cool.
his mic.
So
Oh, it's right. Eyes move. Eyes move to the left. Sorry.
eyes moving to the left.
Dr. Luke, give me a
Eyes moving to
second.
the
Eyes
right.
moving to the left.
So basically, if you guys are hearing, like they're all surrounding me, looking
Eyes-
at me,
eyes
but
moving to
also
the left.
kind of doing this whole
Check it out.
tune-in thing.
No,
We're asking
check
you
it.
guys to move to
Oh,
the right, to move to the left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eyes moving to the
Vision,
left.
vision
Okay.
or X-ray vision.
Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna have you do first is a test, right? So what I want you to do is raise your right arm just as high as you can.
Okay.
Let's see what that range of motion looks like. You can feel what that feels like,
Mhm.
right? It's a little tight when
Yeah.
we're going up,
Yeah.
right?
Right
past
arm
that
feels
point.
restricted.
Cool. Is there a movement that you feel like you can't do or that will cause you pain right now?
Yes. If I twist to the left, I get a lot of pain right there.
Okay, so can you go
In my
ahead?
right hip.
Got it. Can you put your hands together for me and do that? Yep.
A lot less pain.
Okay.
Put my hands together.
Okay, but can you do it again? Just take it to the range of motion that you feel like, oh,
Right about,
Right about
there,
there.
I start to feel a lot of discomfort.
okay, cool. All right, so come back down. So I'm going to give you an eye exercise, and the reason why I'm
Okay.
going to do that, so we have 3 systems, right? We have the proprioceptive, how we feel and in our bodies throughout space, and then we have our visual system, and we have our vestibular system, right? Our vestibular is basically our inner ear balance. Yeah. So if we were to take your eyes out, if you were to just go like this, right, and you try to move around in this room, it would be more complex than if you had your eyesight. Yes.
Right.
Okay,
My hand
so-
smells like peppermint, by the way.
We're acting,
Eyes
we're
are gonna
activating
burn.
the scent now. So you can understand how impactful that would be. And if you were off in your inner ear balance, like Gary was saying, if you're kind of tilted like this, you're going to walk like this around in the world, and then you're going to start to have a lot of tension in that side of the body, etc., until we start to address those particular issues with particular exercises that would go towards that. It's like if you want to grow your bicep, you do a bicep curl, right? Or you do pull-ups, or you do anything that would engage the bicep. So if you were to do eye exercises that would pertain to your particular visual compensations that you may be having, and I can actually see in your face right now, like the symmetry between your eyes is just a little bit different. And
Right.
I'm just going to do an eye test on you. Let's see how this
Okay.
functions. Cool?
Okay.
Amazing. All right, so I'm gonna have you, and I actually drew a little dot here. Can you see a little dot
I
on my
can see a
finger?
little dot on your fingernail
Great.
that you've drawn.
Okay, so
Yes.
you know what? I kind of feel like I need a stool, guys, for this man.
You're kind of short.
I'm kind of fun size.
Mhm.
So here we go. We're gonna look right here first, and I'm gonna have you move your eyes, just trace them over to the left.
Okay, following your finger
Yep,
with
and
my
then
eyes.
perfect. Reset at this finger over here.
Okay.
Beautiful. We're gonna go 4 more repetitions and come back here. And as you notice, I'm also doing this fairly slow. I don't
Kind
want
of
to take
seems
you.
like some of the, you familiar with Z Health at all?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff.
I interviewed them a few years ago on my
Oh
show.
yeah, Eric Cobb.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of the
For
people
those
that I
of you
studied
listening in,
with.
go listen to my episode with Z Health. We can kind of get into all
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fascinating work, and it really ties a lot of the things in the fascia together.
Gotcha.
So what we're doing is really we're trying to de-stress your body so that you can be more in harmony and in tune and in alignment, right? That's what this whole process is. So now what I want you to do is I want you to try your arm again and raise it up and see if that
Okay.
feels different, or it feels tighter, or it feels the same.
Feels a little looser.
A little looser,
More loose.
more loose,
Yeah.
wonderful. And then I want you to
I'll
clasp.
practice my vocabulary.
Yeah, it's gooder.
Okay. It's gooder. Yeah.
And let's go that way.
Okay.
And tell me about any restriction or pain going on there.
Still
It's there?
restriction right there.
Okay, gotcha.
A little back on the right.
Okay, perfect. So come back to center, right? And so we're trying to discover what it is that's
Uh-huh.
going on and what the best movements or best exercises are for your particular body. Now, I'm going to actually take it over to the right. I'm going to have you move your eyes over this way.
Okay.
We're going to see if this movement is going to be better for your body than
You
the
don't
other
have
one.
a dot on the other finger.
I don't
You
have
get
a dot.
A lot harder.
Yep. And so come back here, and I'm actually going to re-straighten out your head there.
Okay.
Okay, so right here,
Got
and then
it.
just follow my fingernail.
Okay. She's raising up her fingers. I'm just basically
And
following them,
right here.
tracking.
Yep, you're just tracking my finger. Beautiful. And then come back to
Okay.
center. Good, and breathe and relax your body as you do this. You don't want to tense up as you're doing this. Excellent. And let's go one more time, por favor. Here we go.
Okay.
And excellent. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and retest that
Okay.
arm and tell me if that feels better than before or
Kind of the same as
Kind
the
of
second
same?
time that we tested.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
And let's go over to that side and see if that feels any different, better,
Yeah.
same, tighter.
A little bit more range of motion, it feels like. when
Little
I-
bit
when
more
I
range of
rotate to the
motion.
left. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to give
Slight
you
amount.
another exercise, and this one's a little bit more proprioceptive. The
Okay.
reason I'm going to do this one in particular is because are most of your injuries on your right side of your body?
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to give a little stimulation,
Most of my
voluntary
injuries
movement.
are actually covering my entire body, but
Okay.
maybe more about it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna have you step your your left leg in front, like this.
Okay.
Cool. And what I'm gonna have you do with this leg in particular is you're gonna formulate circles. So when you formulate circles with your knee, so you're really isolating the knee more than you are moving around with your hips, and you're gonna lock that leg at the top of the movement. Yep, and so when you do it, I'm just gonna kind of guide you a little bit and come all the way up where you lock your leg at the top of that movement
Okay.
and look straight ahead for me. We don't
Okay.
want to rewire your body looking down. We want to have you more biomechanically correct in your
Okay.
posture, right, as we do this. And we're going to keep going for about another 6 repetitions. And the reason a higher volume of repetition for you is because you're an athlete, and so you might require more stimulus.
And for those of you listening in, we're just basically moving my knee.
Yep, and let's
through
move
like
it
a
more forward.
circular range of motion.
There. And on your own, I really want you to focus, hyper-focus on creating that circle. When we have linear movement, it's much easier for the brain. When we have circular movements, it's a little bit more
Yeah,
challenging.
takes
So
some
we're
focus.
right, focus, stimulation
Yeah.
for that brain. So we're activating your cerebellum on this side of your body. We're
Mhm.
activating your PMRF on this one, which is what stabilizes this side of the body.
PMRF.
Yeah, pons modular reticular formation.
Oh wow. Well,
Yeah.
let's see.
Let's do PMRF.
That's like, yeah, it's better
PMRF.
PMRF. Cool?
Yeah. Okay.
And let's go actually one more on that and make it bigger, range of motion. Perfect.
There we go.
Beautiful. That's it. Now we're going to reverse that, and I'm going to give you just 8 more.
Okay. Same thing.
Same
left
thing.
leg, except we reverse direction.
Exactly. So we want to basically lubricate that joint all together, and we're also mobilizing your hip at the same time, your ankles. So these are secondary things that are being mobilized. But the most important thing about this particular exercise is I'm just trying to create a response of stability on this side of your body. And so if it works for you,
Moving the left leg through range of motion, the left knee through range of motion to create a response of stability on the right side.
correct,
Okay.
exactly. And so we're going to test it because I still have to test you and see if that works. But based on the logical sense that it makes and intuitive sense that, I kind of got right away, oh, we need to move this side of the body in order to create that response. We're going to test to see if this improved and this improved. And also, just normally we would have you walk. We don't have enough room right now to walk, but the
Right.
basis,
As we do everything we do here, we walk.
we
it all.
walk,
We walk, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you do on a daily more than anything else.
Yep.
And so by looking at your gait pattern is how we get to determine, is it biomechanically moving better, or is your speed
Yeah.
faster, is your
That's a-
more in flow? Beautiful. Okay, so let's stop right there.
Okay.
Excellent. So I want you to come back to your original position.
Okay.
Excellent. And go ahead and raise that right arm for me.
Okay.
Okay, how does
Whoa.
that
A little
feel?
more range of
Yeah,
motion.
good.
feels
More
like.
range of
Yeah.
motion? Great.
Yeah.
Very
And
noticeable.
let's go ahead on to
Okay.
that
Hands
side.
clasped in front and rotate to the left.
Correct.
A little better.
A little
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Is there a little less pain as well?
Feels like a
Gonna
little
go-
less tightness. in
Little
the
less
lower
tightness.
Right back. Yeah.
Right, and those are the kind of responses that we want because that's how you are trying to reduce the level of stress in your body. And if you can think of every single step that you take is 2 to 3 times your body weight.
Right.
And so if you're walking biomechanically incorrect, you can understand the level of force that you're creating daily and the level of stress. And then your
Right.
fascia tissue starts to formulate around that too. So it's like this whole combination that's happening. And we're just, again, wanting to have your body become more in alignment. So we couple the neurological with the fascia, and that's how we put everything together. And of course, the chemical processes of the nutrition, as you've heard, and bringing everything together. Vocabulary, bringing everything mind, body, soul, because it's all one of the same. And to separate it is
Right.
to
Right.
not
It's
be
a very
integrated.
holistic approach.
Absolutely.
Very
So,
interesting.
so what I want to point out is that we do the work I did with you on the table is like from a neurological standpoint is like 1,000 times stronger than the work that we're doing here because I'm instantaneously changing you in one motion. But this is to help support that. So once we get you that, we put you on the table, we program it, but we want your brain to continue to support it with neurological inputs and proprioceptive exercises. And that's what this team does. We have 12
Amazing.
people that are doing this. And what we do is, since we have a lot of people that can't get to the garage, what we do is we actually put a Skype sessions, because people always ask us, how can we help you if you're not there? And so we do this internationally even. We do
Oh, wow.
Skype sessions with them. And what we do is we watch them walk,
That'll be
and
useful
then we
for
give
people
them
who can't fly to LA to do this.
Absolutely, and what we do is we set up sessions with them with our progression specialist. They analyze their gait over Skype. They go through drills and exercises just like they were here. Because really, we don't have to touch you. This is all about watching how you move and how you stand. Because the way your body and your muscles function is based on the way your brain sees the world. And so we can see what's going on by the way that you move. And that's what we're doing. And this is something that we started doing because we had all these people flying from other countries for alignment work, and we had to develop a process to help them.
Yeah.
And now we're offering that out with all these people. So for people who can't get here, we do that.
It's a great idea. I still think that if you are listening in, it's worth it to make the trip to LA.
It is.
Now, I know that you guys also have things like,
I'm going to go.
okay,
over
thank
there.
you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, see you later. You have, so I know you work with a lot of celebrities and pro athletes. We don't have to name drop right
Yeah.
now, but I've sent people your direction and it's changed their lives. You just send me before and after photos. You work with a lot of folks, but I think from what I understand, or I get the impression, it's like hard to get in. You know, like if people are listening in, you go to your website.
We got a little bit of a
I don't-
waiting
I don't
list.
see-
Yeah.
So, what is the best way for people to connect with you after they've listened to this podcast? So they just go get on the wait list, or
Actually, just go get on the wait list.
okay, just go to humangarage.net.
Yeah.
Now, if they mention my name or this podcast or anything like that, does that help out?
We'll accelerate them.
We'll
to
work-
the-
we'll work
we'll
something
accelerate.
out.
We'll accelerate them to the.
Wait, you're talking about this and all.
So-
I want to make sure my peeps are taken care of.
Tell you what, I'll have the web guys actually put a
Okay.
special markup of where
Okay.
we referred from. If we refer
Okay.
from you, we'll bring them in first.
Okay, cool. So just make sure if you go to humangarage.net, let them know that you came over, you're listening to the show, or mention my name, and they'll try and get you some VIP or some white glove treatment.
Yeah.
At least come in and try some ketone esters, a little bit of peppermint oil.
Our-
That keto fuel, by the way, I'll put links for you guys. The keto fuel, the
amazing.
Power Kirk, all that stuff. I'll put that in the show notes too, so you can grab some of that stuff as well. I'll make that available to you right in the show notes at bengreenfieldfitness.com/human garage. We have only scratched the surface of the mind-blowing things that they're doing here. You guys gotta come in here. You have to experience it to believe it, in my opinion.
And Ben, I wanna say something. So
And Gary, go ahead.
So why we're scaling up and why we're systemizing is that we actually we're hiring more people and we're setting remote teams. So we're gonna be popping up in New York by the end of this year, roughly, early next year.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we're gonna go there every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then in Vancouver, because a lot of our celebrities are shooting in Vancouver.
Yeah,
And it's hard for them to get to us during the shooting season, so we're gonna be going to them.
yeah.
And the other thing too, that all this makes possible. I have 2 co-founders, and I'd like to just introduce them if that's possible.
Yeah, sure.
So,
The co-founders.
We need somebody to hold the cameras here. So my wife, who is my original partner, and
The person who gets to try out a little bit of tea with you.
yeah,
And your wife's name?
Anella. She
Anella.
has a name, and what's more important is she signs all the checks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't let me sign checks.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because I've spent my whole entire life looking. I love business. I love scaling businesses, and I spent my entire life looking for that number 2, the guy who could actually balance me off. And in 2012, I walked into the Beverly Hills Courier. He was running a newspaper. It was a family-run newspaper. He was an accountant by trade. He ran a newspaper. He has business background, automation skills, and he helped us set up the actual business process. He went away to grad school for 2 years, and I thought, oh shit, what am I going to do now? But 2 years went by, and he came back, and it's Clifton.
Clifton.
Yeah,
Hey, good to meet you, bro.
And really, really importantly is that the people who made this all happen is one of our other partners is the guy who actually did all of our branding. Is Wow Branding.
Yeah, he has a
in
great
Vancouver.
branding. I love it.
It's all the products and stuff like that. He was written about in Inc. magazine. He does major branding projects for big companies, and
Wow.
I could never afford to actually pay his fees. But what has happened is he's been a partner of ours all the way along, and he's helped because everything you see is new language because you can't say our trainers are trainers because they do different things.
Yeah.
So Wow Branding, I want to give a shout out to them because Dan Lissick is a genius. He's helped us think through this process because a brand is a promise made and a promise delivered. And that means everything from the technology you use all the way through to the visual inputs and stuff like that. And that's all a part of it. So I just want to give appreciation to them for what they've done. And we're excited because we're expanding. We're going to open up in New York probably at full scale in probably about 18 to 24 months. And then in Vancouver shortly after that. But our long-term goal is really not to open human garages. Is to take this intellectual property, this new science, and actually train practitioners in all forms of medicine. We work with dentists. 20% of our clients are doctors right now. Orthopedic surgeons, internal medicine doctors, chiropractors, physical therapists come here for themselves.
I have a whole, so I have a mastermind, like this group of over 100 coaches who I mentor underneath me online.
Fantastic.
And those are a lot of the people I want to be able to tap into this too. So if you're one of those folks, you know who you are. Talk to me because I'd love to connect you with Gary to learn his ways. Come see Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Thank you, man.
You won't get offended if I call you Yoda.
I do.
All right, so folks, bengreenfieldfitness.com/human garage. Check it out. It is a must-see, must-do. Add to your bucket list if you care about your body or your brain. Until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield along with Gary Linehan.
Yeah.
Signing out from bengreenfieldfitness.com. Have a healthy week, you guys.
Okay, take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching,
Bye.
listening.
That rock, buddy.
Yeah.
Right? End the Facebook Live here.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun. All right. Whoop. Can't turn your phone on. Okay, let me fix this real quick.
You know what? It's
Hold on. Let's see. Let me finish.
guys, what you're doing and what you're